Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Clifford Johnston, with the Mojave Podcast Transmission. Thank you for joining me today. It is June 12th, 2026, and we got a few things we got to cover. A lot of it's from today. There's a couple things that's from the other day. Uh, I mean, you should know about the stabbing attack. You should know about the millions that leave the city and shocking signs of decline emerge in China, Shanghai. So we're going to be looking at that. And thank you for joining. If you like this type of content, make sure you share it with other people that do. And without further ado, here we go. I opened up a Patreon. If you like that type of stuff, please support your local content creators. I recently supported the Next News Network, Decaf Decoy, and Nick Shirley. $10 each. Modest.
You have all these military-style vehicles to take on the Northern Irish protesters. Where were these when they knew about the roving R gangs, the grooming gangs? They obviously have these resources, but they only deploy them one way. Immigrant shops in Belfast are set on fire. Got my ears. And I think there's a way to get your message across, and there's a way to give them reason to clamp down and send the riot police at you.
What's the general mood in the city?
It's very eerie. It's like a ticking time bomb. It's like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
Do you think this is going to last, or is it going to...
Yeah, I think it is going to last, yeah. I hope it lasts. I hope it does.
Yeah.
We don't give up this time. Stormont or over in Westminster, do you know?
Yeah, if they back off now, the government knows. We just gotta arrest enough of them and go away. We just gotta spray enough of them with the water cannons, and we can just keep on going through with looking the other way and banning social media platforms that will let you know that, hey, we let in some people in this country that weren't vetted properly. I believe the man that tried to behead the guy on Monday was supposed to have to seek asylum, was supposed to have an in-person interview, but they said, you know what, we're so overburdened with taking in asylum or asylees or refugees, you can just fill out a 10-page questionnaire and welcome to Ireland. I'm sorry, welcome to the UK. That's how he got to stay in the country.
Not represent us. They don't listen to us. He was living in assisted living where our elderly should be. So they should, why are they getting housed over?
We say, what else left for them to do when you've exhausted all means and legalities and petitions? You can't expect them to give up. Yeah, I think that you don't want them to give up. I just don't think you burn down your own city bus to get your message across.
Have our homeless in the towns in Belfast city centre. Government aren't looking after them, so they're not looking after us. Our children's school places are being taken away. We can't get hospital appointments. I know that. My daughter waited 10 years on a hospital appointment to be diagnosed. So, like,
and that's what Marco Rubio said for the U.S., where they say American citizens are... American citizens are getting put in the back seat, where they say an American paying into the tax base for their entire life, working a blue-collar job, they're expected to live off $1,000 a month after retirement through Social Security. But if you are a migrant coming over the border during the Biden administration, you didn't follow the rules to get in, and then also you still don't have any legal status in this country, by all means take your free hotel room in a 5-star accommodation. Get your $5,000 of EBT food stamps because you got 3 kids you brought along with you, and also free medical care wherever you choose because we make you citizen. You're not a citizen. You're a citizen plus in this country, and it's like that's something that is entirely unsustainable long term.
never would have thought I would ever say.
What else are they supposed to do? Take this protest to the feet of the politicians, not to the feet of the social housing that one day you will like to, is a word, it's not repatriate, but it's like they built all this housing and there's a housing crisis in Northern Ireland. You want that housing for veterans, you want the housing for citizens, you want the housing to become storefronts or or schools, you don't burn it down. You deport the people that are there illegally and then utilize it for the citizens.
Don't want them in my country. I don't want them in my country anymore. My country's been through enough. We have murdered each other for years. We're trying to come together, and I think this is what's going to unite us. I hope it's going to unite both sides and bring us all together. Peaceful, that's all we want. We've been through our troubles and we're getting bossed in more.
When I like what Conor McGregor said, saying, just because we're peaceful doesn't mean we're harmless.
They have no loyalty to us, and when crunch comes to crunch, they're going to side with their own countries, and we have to stick together and side with each other here in Ireland. It has to be.
Yeah, they burned down. This is obviously not a market that serves the Irish natives, and that's likely why it got set ablaze. But the sad part is, like I said, content of the character, not the color of their skin. You don't go around there saying anybody that's here just because you wanted a better life for yourself and our government promised you free passage into the country and free accommodations. That's why so many of them get here and say, where's my pocket money? Because somebody promised them pocket money. Don't get everybody, but when you see somebody like this, okay, by all means, you can deport this person. They say, I don't even know how to pronounce that word, Dungannon. Northern Ireland says an immigrant mocking the race hate attack of one of their own where the guy was beheaded and she's making a joke out of it.
Anybody, look, she did it again, she did it again. Look.
So they recorded her first and she did it, and now she's doing it again as if this is something to make jokes about. I don't care. Maybe she's not actually harming anybody, but that's not somebody you want in the country. This is not somebody that you're going to assimilate into Irish or British culture. This is someone that gets deported.
Oh my god. You get over here now. Oh my god, Evie, get over here. Oh my god. She's around.
This is pretty much a, I don't want to say accurate, but this is a horrific rendition of what happened to that guy. Deport this person immediately. They serve no benefit to society. Again, there may be some free speech law. I don't even know if the UK has free speech anymore, but there may be some things that saying this is okay. But again, if you hate the country that much, I don't understand why you'd want to be here in the first place. But the problem is the powers that be have said people like this are our strength. The crime occurred over in Belfast, and the new Lord Mayor, as of June 1st, because they do day, month, year, as of June 1st, which the attack occurred on Monday, which is what, 3 days ago. So just a week before, the guy got nearly beheaded by a guy that was snuck into Ireland from Sudan, then snuck into Northern Ireland and was in Belfast. And instead of having a one-on-one interview to see if, okay, are you compatible with UK society? Can you be here? Are you seeking asylum? They just let him fill out a 10-page survey, and now he's there. The mayor there was saying, you know what? Diversity is our strength, or diversity enriches our city, and they can't backtrack from it, so they're just going to delete any evidence that diversity is not indeed enriching their city.
I love this city. I was born here, and I've lived in it all my life. It's a city made great by its people. More hard for it, I want to bring a message of diversity and inclusiveness to the year ahead. I was raised in an inclusive, welcoming environment where difference and...
How old is she? If she was raised in an inclusive, diverse environment, I don't know if she was raised in the amount of diversity that she is bringing in to her community. If she is at least probably 40 years old, I'm guessing. She looks 40. If she's 40 years old, she grew up in the 90s in the Belfast community. There was not this level of diversity in Northern Ireland in the 90s. Yeah, Mayor Karen, it's sad.
diversity is embraced and celebrated, and I'm proud of that.
The man is recovering. He lost one eye. I believe he has loss of hearing, and they had to staple his face back together because the guy was genuinely taking off his skull.
My upbringing has shown me that
She's about 30, so then she grew up in Belfast, Ireland, if this is true. Early 2000s. This is before social media. This is really took off. This is like early internet age era. Liberalism was Donald Trump, like Bill Clinton era, Obama era was very much against immigration. So it's like, yeah, she grew up in a conservative era, even though they label that them Democrats now. But this is the problem. I'm very detached from the consequences of my policies, but let me tell you why it's a good thing.
Deserves to be and must be treated equally. I want a Belfast that does that in word and in action, no matter your background. I want a Belfast where language rights are respected and cherished because they belong to all of us. I want a Belfast where we champion the rights of the most vulnerable in our society and do so proudly without fear or favour.
Whatever happened to women and children being the most vulnerable in our society? Because it seems like there's a lot of attacks and violence towards them, and yet they never want to address it. They just want to sweep it under the rug. It's terrifying.
I will never accept that undeniable rights are merely privileges to be given and taken from those in need by those in power.
Undeniable rights to them is garbage. Anything that requires the labor of another human being is not a human right, including medical care, food, any services whatsoever. Like, just if it requires the labor of the peasants to give to you, it's not a human right. It's something that needs to be given through order, capitalism, essentially. But the fact that she said, like, oh yeah, human right, housing, well, you gotta build them the house, you gotta give them the electricity, you gotta give them food, you gotta give them healthcare, like all these things is like, these aren't human rights. These are things we'd like to give everybody, but that's not reality.
Diversity enriches our city and the lives of all of our citizens, and I will champion that diversity.
Yeah, this is going to haunt her for a very long time. Diversity enriches the city. It's going to provide, what you say again?
And the lives of all of our citizens, and I will champion that.
I will champion that. You put that beside the guy getting beheaded, championing that, and it's like, it is why the Irish, or the Northern Ireland is so upset about it. Oh, thanks for the Prime sub, Common Shadow. They can't turn around. Like, what is it? They found Keir Starmer, him talking about the attack in Belfast, which was on June 9th. So it's 8 days after she said diversity enriches Belfast, saying the horrific attack in Belfast was sickening. I have no tolerance for the abhorrent scenes of violence like this on the streets. My thoughts are first and foremost with the victim. I thank the first responders, including the members of the public who intervened. They took like a shovel and beat him over the head. Good on them for stepping in. The guy would not be around if it was not for these brave men that stepped in. 3 small sentences about the literal attempted beheading of what people in chat are starting to say that he was deaf, so possibly disabled guy. The possible beheading or the attempted beheading of a possibly deaf guy. 3 sentences, but their subsequent riots, oh, that takes the essay. The scenes in Belfast last night were shocking and completely unacceptable. There's no justification in the violence and disorder we saw threatening our communities. I'm gonna go ahead and say the beheading, the grooming gangs, and the Taylor Swift dance party that was slashed up over a year ago. The fact that you guys backed up the guy with the knife that stabbed that poor dude to death, and they tried to hide it. The entire family was in on the murder, and the fact that apparently that the Sikh guy, there's video of him firing a firearm in his backyard. There were complaints about it, but no legal repercussions for it. And the fact that he also had stolen over 1,000 pounds or whatever, like $1,200 of sabers or knives from his own temple, that got swept under the rug as well. There's kind of a reason for the disorder that was happening in that community, but no, he's just completely disavowing it. Oh, a hurling stick, okay. A sports instrument, so it's kind of like a, is it like a field hockey stick? I don't know. I'm not well versed in their sports, unfortunately. They say, oh yeah, we saw threatening our community, nor for those who encourage it online or elsewhere. They're really trying to lock down social media because, like the other person said, what is it? Just because you ban social media in Britain, it won't stop the beheadings. It will stop you from knowing about the beheadings, and that's the reason the radical leftist government of Keir Starmer wants to ban X in Britain. They don't plan on stopping these murders or these attempted murders or these grooming gangs. They plan on you not knowing about them, so you can't rise up against the government for allowing it. I'm saying it here, I think either Keir Starmer is just a genuinely evil person, like just genuinely evil, like something against humanity, or they have something on them. There's no reason you would allow this occur unless there was something that was being held over you. So he said, it's clear the people targeted last night because of their background, and I will not tolerate it. Those responsible will feel the full force of the law. Interesting how there's only one full force of law going in one way. Again, I don't like the fact that you're burning down your own buses. I don't like the fact that you're burning down taxpayer-funded housing. But where was this speech? Like, right here, where... He was disavowing the horrific attack, but he never said full force of the law of the guy that tried to behead the person in Belfast. Where was that line? I will not tolerate violent attacks on our disabled people. I will not tolerate people taking advantage of our gracious asylum policies. Where's that part of it? This is the reason why they're burning down entire towns in your area, because the the UK citizens are frustrated that you are going to allow more attacks like this to happen. Yeah, to take here, exactly. I've spoken to the Chief Constable and the Police Service of Northern Ireland to convey my thanks to them and their frontline emergency services for their bravery in keeping people safe with blasting people behind tanks with water cannons. I'm not saying being a copper is not a hard job, and what they do isn't brave. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say, if you're blasting somebody from the safety of a tank with a water cannon, I'm not really giving you a medal of bravery, a medal of valor for what you're doing there. This seems very, very much like light work. I've also spoken to the First Minister and Deputy First Minister to discuss the ongoing situation. Appealing for calm must be the priority, and this is what I urge now. We must let the police get on with their work. Well, the police aren't actually going to do their work. That's why you got riots on your hands. That's why you essentially have a revolution going on right now. But where was this? I think that he was on camera saying we need calm, but then they split that video with him during the BLM riots, and he was like, "I'm appalled with what I can't do a British accent. I'm appalled with appalled by what President Trump is doing, the BLM riots," and he's like taking the knee and taking a picture, and it's like, the fuck you doing, dude? He's okay with riots over BLM, but riots against him for not enforcing the law, apparently that's bad news. I can't do the accent. We're not doing the accent, guys. I'm sorry. But again, the UK, they just want to ban social media. They don't want you to know. Like, where they have the Sophia Dundee and the online rights BS machine. And in case you're not aware, I had to be careful with this video because they are kids, and apparently they actually were being attacked by a migrant ex-offender that I think he was found guilty of, I forgot what. But we covered this almost 9 months ago. So let's just watch a little bit of it. How does a country... Let's not watch me like 10 pounds ago. This is not fun. Okay, let's watch this. What's worse is why is the media making them out to be the villain? As this video from Scotland is going viral.
Why are you fucking
UK again.
Show the knife. Show the knife. Show the knife.
She has a knife and axe, and you have you have full-grown adults yelling at girls. Why do you have knives? It's like, why are you talking to them in the first place? Why do you think this is gonna make society on your side that you're a full-grown adult with your camera out saying, show me the knives, show what you were doing to me? It's like, wait. Pretty certain these girls weren't pulling knives and axes on just everybody they saw that day. They only pulled them out on you. What did you do to cause this?
Don't touch her. That's it. Show the knife. That's it.
Don't touch my sister.
You're a kid. And why do kids think they need to carry these things around? It's because your government has not been making them feel safe. Because they're well aware. In places like the UK, you're gonna go to jail for a very long time for carrying these around. You have to be absolutely terrified for your life to risk your freedom to kind of ensure your safety from creepy adults like whoever's recording this.
You just bothered me.
But rest assured, Scotland, the girl has been arrested. Yeah, they charged her, but then very recently, they charged a guy recording, I believe. Like most viral videos, we're only seeing a brief glimpse into men, and it is a crime for them to even something framed, where this other clip from the UK shows what their police are preoccupied with. Yeah. Where the police to defend the girl that was carrying the axe, they're busy, what is this? They're busy arresting this girl because they're not allowed to be there in McDonald's after 5 p.m., but she has her takeout are preoccupied with after 5 p.m. Yeah, the UK has all their priorities out of order. Again, the Sophia Dundee, the online rights BS machine. I think somewhere they have Yeah, this girl was protecting her older sister from a predator who was later, I believe he's just been convicted or just charged of something. There's a reason why people are rising up against you, and you just don't get it. Long messages against riots, very, very short message to literal attempted beheadings. But this is going to get worse before it gets better, because what is this? This is over in London, in Sheffield.
Swear, please. Be nice. Be nice. Pushing in people. Be nice. Let's get back. Is he going back in? Going back inside. That's nice.
Yeah, the police over there, the what do you call them, the bobbies. I don't think that they have the power they think they do, and the more emboldened the protesters, rioters, activists, whatever you're gonna call them, the more emboldened they get and the more frustrated they get with the whole scenario, the more they're going to push their buttons, the more they're going to try to resist. It's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better. Well, this is just a tweet saying, the Bulgarian migrant who attacked the 2 girls in Scotland found guilty. Belov was found guilty of assaulting kids, acting in a threatening, abusive manner towards them, and her sister also pleaded guilty to the assault on the girl. So the whole family is over here committing these crimes against them, and the only thing we saw out there was, oh yeah, we're charging them. Oh, the online rights BS machine is how they handle it. And you wonder why there's mass riots and uprisings over in the UK, because something was horrendously wrong here. You don't have to be somebody there, like, you know, what Kay says, oh, people from far away on social media inflaming the scenario. No. The video in a crime is inflaming the scenario. Me noticing it and saying, hey, look, we got a platform of 1 million subscribers. Let's talk about what's happening over there, so we make certain that what happens over in Europe doesn't make it over to my community, because I don't want the kids in my community to worry about families assaulting kids so much that they gotta carry axes and knives because they don't think the police will help them.
Chaos has erupted in Belfast after a sickening attack. A man in his 40s was pinned down in the streets before being stabbed in his eyes, his back, his face.
What's very sad about the immigration in Northern Ireland, as well as actually across the whole of the UK, is that the public didn't vote for this.
Protesters are taking to the streets and rioters have been getting out of control. Hello, I'm Gabriella Power. Welcome to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. Chaos has erupted in Belfast after a sickening attack. A man in his 40s was pinned down in the streets before being stabbed in his eyes, his back, his face. A 30-year-old man from Sudan has been arrested and charged. Joining us now is Hilary Fordwich, president and founder of Strellmark. Hilary, thank you so much for your time. Can I get your reaction to what we're seeing on the streets of Belfast?
Well, thank you for having me back, Gabriella, although an absolutely ghastly situation. The only good thing I will say coming out of this, I think, is that, you know, many of us know all about the troubles of Northern Ireland, as they were named, with Catholics killing Protestants and Protestants killing Catholics. And this has actually united them. The communities on both sides of the religious aisle have come together, those native Irish people, and they're really coming together against all of the immigration. And what's very sad about the immigration in Northern Ireland, as well as actually across the whole of the UK, is that the public didn't vote for this. No one has elected this. No one actually wanted this. And what you're seeing is the results of this. There are so many illegal immigrants, the migrants, who have been housed in in Ireland in general. And don't forget, there's a gateway here from the EU, because Southern Ireland is actually not part of the Brexit deal. They're actually part of the EU, and they're coming in that way as well. So terrible situation there. And actually, one thing I don't understand, Gabriella, is why the photograph that you showed and is being shown across media, why should the face of the attacker be blanked out? I mean, this is him. This is what he's doing. But a video was taken live, and he was trying to behead this man. A dreadful situation.
I mean, a dreadful situation. It's beyond. And as you mentioned, this has really touched on so much anger around mass migration, and the people didn't vote for this.
Yes, no one voted for it. Not in Northern Ireland, not in Ireland, not in anywhere in the UK. This is not what people wanted. And I always refer back to the Second World War, and especially we just had the D-Day 80th celebrations of the D-Day celebration. And I think it was very apt that Pete Hegseth said, the Secretary of War from the United States, was over there. And what he said was that this is another form of invasion. And it really is, Gabriella. It's an invasion because this is not what people want. They're given free housing, free food, staying in 4-star hotels, really unacceptable situation.
Yeah, you can understand. It's obviously the violence that we're seeing is never, ever justified, but you can understand a lot of anger. Of course, yes. What's happening over in Ireland, it comes after plenty of protests that we saw in the UK following the murder of Henry Novak, who was stabbed to death in Southampton December last year by Vikram Digwa, who of course falsely claimed that he had been racially abused and acted in self-defence, which was not the truth at all. We know that Digwa was jailed for life at the start of June with a minimum term of 21 years. But we saw plenty of anger on the streets over how Henry Novak was treated by police. Of course, we saw that horrific vision that was released showing that Henry was handcuffed and not believed. And even Henry's father highlighted how the different treatment, how Henry was treated and how Digwa was treated by police. And we also heard from JD Vance. He weighed into this, highlighting some of the problems that you have, that countries have when you don't have controls of your borders, Hillary.
Oh, yes. And there's a reason that Sir Keir Starmer is referred to as two-tier Keir, because he's head, obviously, as Prime Minister, not directly of the police force, but generally of all the policing over there. And yes, it is two-tier. So Henry Novak, he actually said 4 times, I've been stabbed. He said 9 times, I can't breathe. And the police officer said, I don't think so, mate, and was handcuffing him. Whereas Vikram, as you mentioned, the assailant, never was handcuffed. He was even taken to the police station, Gabriella, and he wasn't handcuffed even in the police station. And he was actually shown around to the kitchen to choose what sort of food that he would like. Meanwhile, Henry Novak died. The coroner, of course, heard from expert witnesses that, well, you know, his death was unavoidable by the time the police got there. But no, if an ambulance had been called immediately, and his last words didn't have to be being read his rights. That is not a dignified way to die. And also, may I make mention of the fact that Henry Novak, not only did his family say that he was very inclusive, he was actually in town in Southampton celebrating the end of term at university with the members of the football team that was a diverse team, and he has diverse friends. There's nothing in his entire background or history to say he had a racist bone in his body. So very unfair, very unjust, and two-tier policing.
While we're on the UK, there are reports that billions of dollars of taxpayer money, including through aid payments, have ended up in the hands of gangs and some terrorists. Can you bring us up to speed on this, Hillary?
Yes, this has been all across, actually. It's the UK and in the US. In the US, it's being headed by JD Vance, who's actually heading the DOJ investigation of this. But in the UK, it's the same thing. There's been fraud, and actually they're called... basically, they're fraud influencers, Gabriella, which is even worse. There are those that have been literally ripping off the system, deceiving the system, and have been bragging online and making and becoming actually sensational influencers. One was actually bragging about stealing over £700,000, Gabriella, before he was arrested. Yes.
And you mentioned JD Vance. He's now referred allegations that Tim Walz knew about the massive Minnesota fraud, and he's referred this to DOJ's Fraud Division for Criminal Investigation. Let's take a listen.
But here's what's particularly troubling about this to me is Jesse, you had people within Governor Walz's office who were saying, you know what, this looks like fraud. It looks like these Somalian illegal immigrants are doing something that's very shady. And then you had people who shut them down, who shut these whistleblowers down and said, you know, you're a racist or you're a xenophobe for asking questions about where taxpayer money is going. What that means to me, Jesse, is that clearly people weren't taking fraud seriously. Whether it rises to the level of a criminal violation, we're going to investigate it. And of course, if it does rise to that level, we're going to prosecute it. We have to.
Yeah, it's great hearing JD Vance be so strong on this issue, and he hasn't let it go because it's so important. It's so much money. You know, when you look at what was happening in Minnesota, you look at Tim Walz and you think, okay, there are really two possibilities. Either he really is an idiot or he knew.
Well, actually, yes, you're referring to, believe there is he's in a lose-lose situation. You're totally right. He either didn't know, in which case he's an absolutely dreadful governor, right? If you don't know what's going on, or he did know and he supported it. And of course, we've now found, and it's due to investigations and probes, it's the latter, that he did indeed know. And there were those that were whistleblowers who were actually penalized and actually lost their jobs. And that's a whole nother section of this. What I would say is very important about the whole investigation with regard to Tim Walz, it's across the United States as well. There are certain states that have been working with the administration. I actually happen to live in Maryland, right by Washington, D.C. Maryland has actually, even though it's a very democratic state, has been cooperating with the DOJ. So have other, even some other blue states. But there are other states like California, like Tim Walz's state there in Minnesota, that haven't been actually helping with the investigation. And last but not least, what's really important about this for a taxpayer like me and many viewers that are going to watch this here in the United States, Gabriella, is that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which are what provides for the elderly for care and also for pensions, it's not sustainable. It will not be in place unless all the fraud is stopped. So the fraud will actually elongate the duration of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So it's very important to all honest tax-paying citizens that want to receive those benefits that they've paid into for all these years, instead of seeing it go to fraudsters.
Absolutely. Let's turn to California and LA. We'll start with the LA mayoral race because there's been a bit of an upset with City Councilwoman far-left Nithya Raman beating independent Spencer Pratt for second place. Lots of questions around this, but what does this mean for LA?
Oh, I'm so sorry for the people of LA, because they should look to New York with Mayor Mondami, basically what she's been referred to as the Mondami of the West. Socialist ideas. I will actually defer, Gabriella, to Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who said the problem with socialism is you run out of spending other people's money. The only option, the only way, there isn't any such thing as government money. The only money government has is taking it from taxpayers. So taxpayers are going to be spending money to provide for what they have there already, which is lawlessness, homelessness, and a decaying city. And I feel very sorry for the people of Los Angeles if they're going to vote for more of the same.
However, in some good news, it looks like Steve Hilton will be advancing to the general election for governor of California. What can you tell us?
Oh, yes. I think Steve Hilton, who actually worked for the David Cameron administration, was an advisor to them in the UK. Of course, he's English born. What I think is very impressive about him, he came from nothing, absolutely nothing. He lived with his mother in a damp basement, single mother, damp basement apartment, Gabriella. He came from nothing. He's made his millions. So he is literally the American dream. The last time that California had a Republican foreign governor, of course, was Arnold Schwarzenegger, when the state did do rather well. So I think this is great hope for California. What Steve Hilton has quoted is that 56% of Californians do say they want change. He is pointing to everything that's wrong with California. And I think Californians need to think about the fact that this is the first time in all of Californian history that they're losing population. Why? Because of the state of California. And Steve Hilton is the great hope.
Isn't it interesting? Look, finally, before I let you go, Hillary, one more thing on Britain. Britain's set to follow Australia's lead and ban teenagers from social media platforms. So this is what Keir Starmer wants to announce amid growing speculation that he's going to be replaced soon, potentially in the next few months. Could not come soon enough. What do you make of this? I don't think it's turned out too well here in Australia.
Well, I don't live there, of course, in Australia, but I've heard from many, and I've seen from some of your reports that it hasn't worked out very well. What are always they say? If they say with children, the more exciting and more interesting you make something, the more they want it. If you put this ban on place, those that want it are just going to find it even more exciting how to get around these bans. And there's already been examples of masses of investigations with regard to those who actually managed to deceive the system for age verification. So my prediction is teenagers that are smart and savvy, they're just going to get around this somehow. And all the government's doing is really restricting free speech.
That's exactly what they're doing.
I'm not a proponent of nudity or anything ghastly at all. In theory, it's lovely. I just don't see it working.
Yeah, no, I can see that it's well intentioned. However, the clampdown on what you can see and certain platforms that you can access, the kind of censorship, to some people, there's a lot of control and it's a very slippery slope. And I don't think it's worked out too well here in Australia at all. Kids are very smart and I think they're going to outsmart Starmer. Hilary Fordwich, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, Gabriella.
If you're a regular viewer of Power Hour, you know I cover protests, political theatre and media meltdowns. And what always strikes me is how disconnected the slogans are from real life. While activists shout ideology, ordinary people face rising prices, higher taxes and governments determined to make everything harder. We're told to trust the experts, trust media narratives and trust that massive spending and endless debt will make us better off. But history and common sense say otherwise. When leadership is weak and policy is reckless, everyday people pay the price. That's why I believe in owning something real. Physical gold and silver from American Hartford Gold. Tangible assets that hold value through inflation and through instability. With an A+ BBB rating and thousands of 5-star reviews, they deliver gold and silver to your door or store securely in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And right now, when you call and mention that I sent you, you could get up to $20,000 in free silver with your first purchase. Call 855-802-5199 or text POWER to 65532. That's 855-802-5199 or text POWER to 65532 or click the link in the video description. Because when politics turns into performance and the media loses the plot, it's worth protecting something that actually holds up in the chaos and outlasts all the trends. The United States has launched military airstrikes on Iran following the downing of an American military helicopter with 2 pilots escaping. Let's cross to Washington, D.C. now. Joining us is Christian Datok, White House reporter at the Washington Examiner. Christian, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Donald Trump has said that the US military's strikes on Iran were very strong and very powerful. What are you hearing from where you are?
Well, they were an appropriate response, I would argue, in that downing of the Apache helicopter. As you mentioned, neither of the 2 pilots suffered serious injuries and are thankfully now recovering back in U.S. custody. But from the sources that I've spoken to, the president has what's called essentially the full menu of possible responses in the event of any attack from Iran. That's the job of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the National Security Council, to give him options there. But what we've heard doesn't necessarily seem like the full-throated response, potentially, that the United States could have taken. They've struck, apparently, 2 water reservoirs in southern Iran. There have been reports of explosions on Qasem Island. Of course, this is preliminary, and then we're getting more and more reports of explosions coming in from the ground in Iran and local media there. But ultimately, I would say that this is a tempered response from President Trump to steps or actions that he might possibly have taken.
It's interesting. What does this mean for the peace deal, do you know?
Well, I think what it means is quite simple. President Trump isn't abandoning the diplomatic process. Now, we can't say the same for Iran themselves. The IRGC has said that they are planning on launching a retaliatory wave of strikes themselves, whether they be suicide drones or missile strikes on American targets in the region. But ultimately, again, just this more metered, scaled back response from the president, minimal civilian casualties, minimal damage, to the civilian infrastructure would indicate that he is still hoping he can keep the ceasefire on the table, not only in the present, but seeing those negotiations extend down the line as well, and potentially see some movement on the future of Iran's nuclear program.
Donald Trump issued a warning to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier this week following a series of strikes between Israel and Iran. Apparently in a phone interview with Axios, Trump explained his message to Netanyahu saying, "Bibi, you better be careful or you will be on your own very soon." What do you make of the relationship between Donald Trump and Netanyahu?
I do think the relationship between these 2 men is about as strong as we've seen, not only between President Trump and a foreign leader, across his 2 terms in office. But really, in terms of an American president giving an Israeli prime minister large swaths of freedom, essentially, to operate with impunity when it comes to prosecuting these conflicts in the Middle East, because ultimately what they are saying behind closed doors, President Trump, using profanity to talk Netanyahu out of invading southern Lebanon, that ultimately shows the U.S. and Israel, their interests are not totally aligned right now when it comes to the war with Iran. Obviously, Israel being in the region, trading fire with Iran on a regular basis for decades now. Really, they view this as a much more serious threat than the Trump White House might. And they are willing to, again, settle for some type of diplomatic accord, because I don't think President Trump wants to do what's necessary to win what might become a hot war once again with Iran, namely put American boots on the ground. That's political anathema. It's poison ahead of the midterms. And so for those reasons, he and Bibi, though they are close allies, clearly are not seeing eye to eye right now as it relates to handling Tehran.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned the midterms that Donald Trump has to worry about. What's your prediction heading into the midterms and how this is it going to impact Donald Trump?
Well, the war in Iran is certainly the big elephant in the room, especially on the Republican side of the aisle, no pun intended. And ultimately, each day that this war continues without major movement on a ceasefire deal, whether in an intermediary or a final form, that only hurts Republicans' chances of holding on to the Senate and the House. They have, of course, majorities in both chambers of Congress. And ultimately, Donald Trump is going to be hit hardest, because if he wants any semblance of hope in terms of, passing another big landmark spending package or governing legislatively at all, he's going to need the Republicans to hold on to majorities, because if Democrats take over Capitol Hill, it's going to be one, impeachment from the jump. It doesn't matter the issue. We've already heard from a number of Democratic lawmakers talking about plans for impeaching the president if they can take back the majorities. And I also think President Trump would have significantly more roadblocks when it comes to not only continuing the fighting with Iran, if the war isn't ended by that point in time, but moving on to campaigns in Cuba. We've heard him openly discuss how he wants to, essentially save the Cuban people from the government. With a Democratic-controlled Congress, I think that would make this new campaign dramatically more difficult as well.
Absolutely. Look, let's turn to what's happening in Texas. Protests have erupted outside a courthouse over the conviction of Carmelo Anthony. Now, he was convicted of murder in the fatal stabbing of high school athlete Austin Metcalf at a track meet, and supporters of Anthony have labelled the conviction as racist, clashing with other protesters. Can you bring us up to speed on this?
You've done a pretty good job of doing that yourself, Gabriella, but I think ultimately what you're seeing happen in Texas right now is an unfortunate failing of the American judicial system at the moment. Not necessarily the verdict itself, but the way these high-profile cases become so polarized that no matter what the verdict is, essentially, you're going to have protesters saying that it's rigged or it was an improper verdict. The jury in this case, they're saying it only took 3 hours to deliberate before handing down that guilty verdict. And then people are wondering, how could this possibly have been? I mean, this case has been bandied about in the court of public opinion for over a year now at this point in time. I mean, Carmelo Anthony's first court appearance was back in April of 2025, I want to say. So this is just ultimately an unfortunate scenario that we deal with all too often here in the States, especially when some of these cases, be they murder or other crimes, happen in a racial connotation. It's become an unfortunate reality of living in this country, really.
I want to get your thoughts on Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner. He's unleashed on Senator John Fetterman, labelling him an a-hole. So this feud between Plattner and Fetterman seems to be really heating up.
It does, and it's funny because in many ways, both of these men are kind of caricatures of each other when it comes to campaigning as a radical, progressive, anti-establishment Democrat. They like to wear hoodies. John Fetterman still wears them on the floor of the Senate. to this day. And, Graham Plattner loves talking about how he's an oyster farmer and a veteran and, not like those ivory tower educated Democratic establishment elites. But in reality, both of these men have serious electability problems. Obviously Fetterman's health has been talked about since he suffered a stroke on the campaign trail himself. And Plattner has been dealing with, it seems like a new scandal or controversy virtually every month, if not week, since he took over the lead in that race from Governor Janet Mills. These guys are really kind of two sides of the same coin, and it is both funny to watch them take shots at each other on the margins, because I do think ultimately Plattner isn't at risk of winning the main primary to Janet Mills. I mean, she's one of the least popular sitting governors in the country right now, and ultimately this is party on party violence that we're seeing. A Democrat going after a Democrat. Usually have to wait for that type of election excitement until the general. I'm glad we're getting a little bit of it now while we're still in the primary.
I want to talk to you about Hunter Biden, the son of course, former US President Joe Biden. He's taken the internet by storm after resuming posting on his X account, and these include many jokes, including a run for president in 2028, potential run, I should say. So he's going viral for some of these posts. Surely the Democrats want him to stop this.
At this point in time, I don't think they do, actually, Gabrielle. I mean, Donald Trump has been back in office for some 18 months, and with the very few exceptions to the rule, Democrats really have not been able to find their North Star in terms of rallying around a national political figure. I'm not saying Hunter Biden
is he the
necessarily
North Star?
That figure. No, I'm certainly not making that argument myself, but what he's giving Democrats right now is a little bit of authenticity, because again, I mentioned the skeletons
We're
in
not
Graham
actually
Plattner and John
considering Hunter
Fetterman's
Biden
closets.
as a
Hunter
nominee, are
Biden
we?
has
This is
been
fucking
dragged through the
Are
mud
you
for
kidding me?
my entire career.
Hunter
in
Biden's
politics
laptop,
and
that whole thing.
journalism,
Now we're.
but we've
I'm
never
done.
really quite heard from
I'm just
him
gonna shut
on
up
a
now.
personal level. And I've spoken to a number of former Biden White House folks who told us, look, we weren't even supposed to ask about the family, let alone talk about them in public. We kept Hunter and the grandchildren on a very tight leash. Perhaps we should have, freed them to go on the interwebs, or whatever the kids are saying these days, a long time ago, because he's certainly getting response from the Twitter community. He's getting engagement on both sides of the aisle. And ultimately, it's just nice to hear someone tell their story. Hunter is now 7 years sober, and despite all of his really terrible and borderline extremely corrupt business dealings in the past, it's nice to see someone kind of come out the other side of addiction, a problem that is, again, unfortunately impacted all too many American families these days.
Yeah, but listen to what you just
sort
said.
of
Hold on,
shine
bro.
a light or
Think about it. We don't want somebody that has literally colluded with fucking China anywhere near the House of Office. What the fuck are you talking about? And like, oh, what is this? Such a big fucking sigh of breath, fresh air. Like, what is this supposed to be? This is a joke. So 7 years sober, now you're just supposed to be like this fucking thing you look up to because you're sober, bro? What about the people who didn't do drugs their entire fucking life that were spitting in their fucking face? The stupid shit like this that gets me irritated. The people who look like they fucking done meth but never done meth in their fucking life doesn't mean that like I'm any less capable of running for office than Hunter Biden now, apparently. This shit is fucking insane, guys. I don't know what to say about this.
That it's not too late to try and
not fun.
turn your life around.
This is not.
It's funny, like you
but
pointed
stay
out,
the fuck out of everyone else's life while you're at it.
Future, I'm
stay
not
to
so
your
sure
own
Hunter
course.
Biden is really gaming for anything right now, other than just firing off some takes on Twitter.
I did drugs. It's okay. Now look at me. I'm the president.
The Democrats, if they're really happy
that
Hunter
we're not
Biden is
doing
the one showing some authenticity.
I can't do it, man.
I think you hit the nail on the head again. I mean, we're almost 2 months into President Trump's term in office. By this time, it's usually clear who the front runner or handful of front runners will be for a presidential election on the back half of any term in office. And at this point, you can point to Gavin Newsom. Gretchen Whitmer took herself out of this conversation, but Josh Shapiro, Andy Bashir, Ro Khanna, I mean, the list goes on and on. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we really have no idea who the next leader of the Democratic Party will be. Not even Democratic Party leaders themselves, who, let's not be honest, are still grappling with
so let's not make
the
them
fallout
think
of
that
this
fucking
2024
Biden's okay to go. This is
postmortem.
what I mean,
Should
bro.
Kamala Harris throw her hat in the ring again? So even though President Trump loves stepping in it at almost every possible turn, it doesn't seem like Democrats have quite figured out how to make good on any lessons, or if they've learned any lessons at all from 2024 in terms of countering the political juggernaut that is Donald Trump and the stranglehold he has on the Republican Party at this point in time.
Yeah, I think there's no evidence that the Democrats have learned
somebody
anything
getting work
since
done.
2024.
Now you
mentioned
got
Kamala
TDS
Harris.
too?
What do you honestly think her chances are?
I'm certainly not a prognosticator, so I'll say better than zero are Kamala Harris's chances of being the nominee. But I really think if she truly is serious about running again, she needs to wait a cycle. Let Gavin Newsom and everybody else that I just mentioned battle it out. Let Marco Rubio and JD Vance and whoever might be seeking.
Nobody listen to this guy. Nobody take 2 cents out of their day to watch somebody that has X-Men comic books on their wall for who's going to run the American elections. Nobody do this. This is the problem with people overseas. This shit too right here. Like, you have to deal with our fucking shit too now. Like, so what? So what? You didn't think I was going to cap on you guys if you stepped out of line, bro? This is fucking retarded. I have heard no good out of this.
The 2028 Republican nominee do their own thing on the primary, and then you can run again in 4 years, because let's be honest, she is still a very.
So who gave the rule book to this guy? Like, who was like, this is the guy that, like, everyone's now gonna listen to, and that everyone is like, okay, yep, this is the thing. This is the problem. Like, the entitlement, the necessity to talk about anything and everything all the time, bro. Like,
a young woman in terms of the age ranges of American politicians.
What is the
and
point of
ultimately,
this?
I think she really does need to separate herself not only from the stink of the Biden administration,
So now
but really kind of take a look in the mirror and figure out what went wrong.
You don't even know what she does in California, bro. Like, I mean, how dare you tell her that she doesn't deserve to sit in that office ever again for the shit that she's done in California. The amount of, like, the people that she's incarcerated, but rules are for thee, not for me type shit, bro, I am not with. And, like, how dare you sit there in Australia and think that for 1 second I wasn't going to cap on your freaking dumbass. This is insanity, bro. Like, leave her out of your brain for... You want to take Kamala over there for your fucking president? No, I didn't fucking think so. Well, then stay the fuck out of our politics, bro.
President, and how do I adapt to what's clearly a rapidly evolving political landscape?
Yeah, I don't know if she's learning those lessons either. Just even listening to her on plenty of media platforms, especially when she came out here in Australia, very defensive. I think her whole thing is about the 3 months that she was running and not the 4 months that she was vice president. Just finally, before I let you go, what are your thoughts on the Republican side looking at 2028?
Well, if I were a betting man right now, which it isn't American football season, so I'm not, don't tell my wife, I would put money on Marco Rubio. I mean, I do think ultimately what he's done in terms of not only winning over Washington compared to 2016.
I mean, it's this shit right here, bro. Like, it's like that segment, bro, where Peter had, like, on America's show, like, you know what grinds my gears, America? You. Fuck you. Like, this shit right here is, like, the epitome of this shit, bro. Like, we put off the fact that, like, people in Australia think that they have an opinion that's gonna sway the American public. Like, this is the international bullshit. Like, this is fucking, like, insane to me that this is even on their topic of discussion. Like, don't they have any better things to talk about in Australia? Like, I would be pretty fucking irritated if I was in Australia and all I heard about is the American people's elections and Kamala Harris, and who gives a flying fuck, bro? Honest to God. I mean, I would be completely up and over ends with this shit. Like, no wonder everybody fucking just don't talk about politics, because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, this shit right here is insanity, bro. Like, nobody in their right mind wants somebody that ran the DA's office in California like the way she did to be in a position to maybe make an executive order to, like, to cause people to be put in internment camps. That's the type of power that the president has and holds and has held and literally in righteous times done. Like literally to maintain the American people's security. So like now we're going to sit here and think that somebody that will never like, I mean, she's locked so many people up for the dumbest shit. And then you're going to go ahead and like try to say that she's the answer. Bro, but like her state alone is the easiest when it comes to crime. And like the bullshit, like people are having to bring up the fact that the state, if the elections are rigged, what makes you think that the voting policies for the laws aren't rigged? So all the way up the line. So you notice like somebody like Kamala Harris is either like, I'm going to get in trouble or I'm going to go to the top to make sure I never get in trouble. And this is the shit that we need to look into. It's not something that like, oh, she's going to be the first woman president and all this shit. It doesn't, I honestly, in my opinion, I don't think she's worth the time to have the first woman president be like that, because like it spits in the face, like I say, of every other person who has like a 4.0 GPA out there that has never touched any type of bullshit, that is literally just like sitting there, why me? Why do I gotta sit here and eat shit while these people up there in the highest office have nothing to do with the people, don't even go to the fucking border? She was the border czar and never went to the fucking border. Like, you think for 2 seconds that I'm going to sit there and think that, like, this guy right here would want her in any position of security power or over there in Australia? So why is he talking about just waiting 4 years to let the stink go away? Bro, we're still talking about Hillary and the fucking emails. Bro, you're on your own. I mean, I used to think that, like, I mean, this is fucking insane.
But winning over President Trump, showing that he can negotiate both easy and difficult agreements with other leaders on the global stage, that's something that's worthwhile in this day and age. But ultimately, American politics really is very hardly settled on foreign policy unless the United States is involved in a war.
So why are you talking about it?
So if the U.S. is still involved in the war in Iran in 2028, all bets are off. But as it stands right now, I think Marco Rubio
so
has
now it's a war in Iran.
Impressed us the most a year and a half into President Trump's second term.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Christian Dattog, Washington Examiner, White House reporter, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Brilliant to speak with you.
Anytime, Gabriella. Thanks again.
Keep him far away from
There's a growing concern for American seniors that isn't getting enough headlines. Several officials have now acknowledged a significant error in government provider directories, that the information is often inaccurate. People are finding out far too late that their plan doesn't actually cover their preferred doctors, and in a system this complicated, you can do everything right and still end up misled, and those mistakes can cost you thousands. This is why Power Hour has partnered with Chapter. When you need to understand your Medicare options, you need a team that advocates for you, not the insurance companies. They compare every plan nationwide, and they've helped seniors save an average of $1,100 on healthcare costs, and their support is completely free. So if you're turning 65 or if you have questions about your coverage, call Chapter at 743-282-0196. Don't rely on outdated data. Call 743-282-0196 to speak with a real person who can help you navigate this today. That's 743-282-0196. Joining us now for all the royal news is Louise Roberts, News Corp columnist. Louise, great to see you.
See you too, Gabriella.
Let's start with the wedding. The official photos have been released for the wedding of Princess Anne's son, Peter Phillips, who of course tied the knot with Harriet Spelling. And Harriet Spelling was seen in a vintage diamond and pearl tiara, wasn't she?
Yes, she was, but it wasn't one of Princess Anne's tiaras. So I think Harriet very carefully handled the situation. We spoke about last time of whether Anne would lend her tiaras, but I think what Harriet did is she got Pragnell, which is the company that made her engagement ring. She loaned one from them. It was absolutely exquisite. But didn't she make a fabulous royal bride? I think she was just so elegant. The dress was lovely. Having her daughter and Peter's daughters as the bridesmaids was a really lovely touch as well. So I think she's avoided any drama. And in fact, I would say she played it perfectly.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was great was in her bouquet she had myrtle, which is very much a royal trademark flower. The Queen had it in her bouquet, the late Queen Mother as well. Diana, Catherine, I think Meghan too, and also Eugenie. So she's put herself royal adjacent without being showy or flashy. And I think with that family, that's a big win. That's a big success.
Absolutely. What a great move. And also, of course, the wedding was royal star-studded. It included, of course, King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William and Princess Catherine. Who else was in attendance?
So Eugenie and Beatrice both came with their husbands too. And I noted that William was very affectionate towards his cousin, which was great to see. The Tyndalls were there, so Zara and her husband Mike were there, and their daughters too, which was lovely. So, and of course, she's the groom's sister. But it was a really lovely touch, I think, having a wedding where Beatrice and Eugenie were very much still part of the fold, because they still have their titles, they're still princess and they're still HRH. And it's good to see that whatever drama surrounds their parents, and that seems to always grow by the week, it hasn't touched them. they're still very much part of the fold.
And I think that's really important. I think it's really important for the public to see as well that they're very much included.
Yes, they're not sort of tarred by the same brush. They're their own people. And Charles, I think, has made a real effort. And it's good to see William as part of that sort of plan as well.
Yeah, to make sure that they are still very much welcome. Now, of course, while this has been going on, there's been photographs of former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's been spotted with this mysterious bruise on his face, sparking plenty of questions. Do you have any details around this?
Well, he was photographed 2 weeks before that picture without the bruise on his face. And it's a really large mark going from his temple right down to the side of his cheek. So, I mean, a bruise is what blood pooled underneath the skin. So there's been plenty of speculation about how he got it, but the word is that it may have been a medical situation, but nobody is actually going to give any detail. And I guess from Andrew's point of view, he knows he's persona non grata, so he's not going to volunteer any information about what's happened to his face. But I think they're trying to hose it down a little bit, that it's not the drama maybe that people think it is. But no doubt it's a big bruise on his face. Look, it could be an ageing thing. He's, in his 60s now, so it could be, impact bruise. Who knows? We don't really have any information. I'm not a pathologist, so I can really speculate beyond the photo, which was alarming to see. But perhaps by not addressing it, that's what's fueled all the speculation about how it actually happened.
Well, Andrew's still getting the spotlight for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately, for the royal family. Now, there are reports, though, that Prince William is considering tighter royal property rules as king. What do you know about this?
So he's very keen to stop any royals subletting their properties. This has been triggered by Andrew's behaviour yet again, where he's been found by one of the tax audit officers in the UK of subletting 3 properties on the Royal Lodge, which is where he used to live. So he was farming these out to staff and probably paying them pretty hefty rent, while himself only paying a minimal, or what they call peppercorn rent, in the UK. So William wants to stop that, and he wants to make sure that people who are not working royals are not getting grace and favour apartments for free, that they're actually working and actually being paid accordingly. So this creates a bit of a conundrum, because Beatrice and Eugenie have been living rent-free. That's because Charles pays for their rent out of his own money.
Right.
So although it's not technically taxpayers' money, it's a bit of a grey area, because I guess from William's point of view, the optics are bad, because if you're not a working royal, why are things being paid for you? And both Eugenie and Beatrice, of course, are very wealthy husbands. They don't need the money. It's more the optics, I think. And overall, this is William. He's got very much a laser-like focus on streamlining the monarchy, making sure the people who are part of it, like Princess Anne's a perfect example, his aunt, who is very hardworking and deserves to be on the payroll. Others who are not doing royal work do not deserve to be on the payroll. He's very astute, I think, in that way. And the fact that he's already making rumblings about this and he's not even king makes me think what's coming down the line for a lot of the people in the royal family who perhaps have been used to a luxurious lifestyle and they'll no longer have it.
It'll be very interesting to see and to watch this space very closely. Well, 2 former working royals, no longer, Harry and Meghan. Let's chat about them. There are reports that Prince Harry is desperate to bring his wife Meghan Markle and their children back to the UK. So sources have told Page 6 that there is still no chance, though, that Harry will be seeing his brother Prince William.
Yes, which is a shame, but hardly surprising. I mean, if you write a bestseller about your family, you can't expect to be welcomed back with open arms. I do note that whenever I see these stories, it seems to be this endless cycle of olive branches which are coming from California, isn't there? That he wants to make amends and he wants to repair things. So these sort of stories are very subtly leaked out. And we know he's in the UK in July, so next month, for sort of pre-promotional engagements ahead of the Invictus Games next year. And the suggestion is he wants to bring Meghan and Archie and Lilith back with him. But of course, his whole security arrangements remain unresolved. He lost his legal action on that. And he said previously he doesn't want his family in the UK unless they're protected by armed guards eventually, or, armed police. So that's not going to happen, clearly, by next month. And he wants to use the trip, I believe, to get closer to his father and for his children to spend time with their grandfather. But again, whether that remains, we just don't know if any of this is going to happen. It might be his wish, but Charles's wish and certainly William's agenda are very different, I think. And it's a real shame, because if he's not seeing his brother, he won't be seeing his brother's children. So again, his children miss out on meeting their little cousins.
I feel sorry for the children, absolutely. But you make a really good point about where these stories are coming from. Coming out of California, always the olive branch coming from Harry and Meghan. Yet Meghan's had plenty of opportunities to take swipes at the royal family multiple times. Absolutely. So I don't know why it should necessarily be received well.
Well, neither will be, because neither of them have ever said publicly, we're sorry for what we've done. They've never ever said sorry. And I think the wounds are very much still open. So, whether Harry can see his father, I mean, I do hope he does. It's not nice to see, or it's a terrible family rift, which seems to get worse year by year. And I was reminded when I was looking at these stories this morning about watching them, when I covered Diana's funeral way back in '97, watching these 2 boys walking near their mother's coffin. The whole world was willing them together. We knew they had each other. And you could not imagine seeing those 2 young boys, absolutely broken-hearted, that anything would come between them and they would be estranged. But here we are in 2026. They've not been seen in public together since the Queen's funeral in 2022, and no hope of any, reconciliation on the horizon. It's a real tragedy in the royal family, a modern tragedy, I think.
Very well said. That gives me goosebumps thinking about them as young boys, and the whole world is behind them, and wanting them to have a great relationship as 2 brothers. Absolutely.
To survive that ordeal, to actually have each other, but they don't have each other anymore. So it's a tragedy.
Incredibly sad. Sorry to leave it on a sad note, but Louise Roberts, we always love having you in the studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabriella.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you again tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.
3年，整整空了3年。
3 years, 3 whole years, and everyone in the building has left. This shop probably won't rent out again. There isn't a single person on the street, and this is Shanghai. On May 11th, a video showed how empty Shanghai had become. Office buildings were deserted, and shops downstairs hadn't rented out in 3 years. If even a city as valuable as Shanghai looks like this, imagine other places. Many people traveling to Shanghai for work have noticed the city's energy isn't what it used to be.
这次来上海，突然发现上海好像很萧条。
Coming to Shanghai this time, I suddenly noticed it feels really quiet. There aren't many people in the malls, nightlife is sparse, and many factories have shut down. Look at this airport. It's almost empty. Compared to a few years ago, this metropolis known as Magic City just isn't the same. I checked, and Shanghai has actually been losing population these past few years. Why is that happening?
上海的房租是能租多高就租多高。
Shanghai rents are always pushed as high as possible. This shop used to rent for 300,000 renminbi a month, even 500,000 renminbi at one point. Now, even for tens of thousands, no one wants it. When the market is good, landlords make a fortune. But when it's bad, expecting to rent for high prices? Impossible. So many storefronts are now empty for rent or for sale. Some have been sitting empty for over a year. It's a bit scary.
At noon today, I walked past Chongping Road during lunch. This whole row is empty. I wanted to eat at Lai Bi Bao, but it's closed. Every shop in this row is shut. I have no idea why. Is business really this bad now? And these are downtown shops, an entire row closed. There's nowhere to eat nearby.
太吓人了！这么震撼的场面竟然发生在上海。
It's terrifying. To see something so shocking happening in Shanghai, this is basically the heart of Putuo district, near Changsha Road. I remember there used to be lines every day here. Now, everything's closed. Rents are too high and tenants are under huge pressure. The office vacancy rate in Putuo district is even more worse. On May 25th, vlogger Shanghai Xiaoyang shared a video saying,
我现在在上海的真如。
I'm here in Zhenru, Shanghai. Look at this office building, completely empty. I've never seen a building this big without anyone inside. The ones across the street are basically all empty too. There's no sign of people anywhere, not even a trace, including this building. In the video from Zhenru, you can see the emptiness inside the building. Wide hallways, elevator lobbies almost empty, and the opposite buildings barely lit with no signs of office activity. This cluster, about 200 to 230 meters tall, was once expected to become a new business landmark for Putuo and Western Shanghai. But in just a few years, it went from highly anticipated and bustling to complete silence. The data from 2024 show that Zhenru's overall office vacancy rate reached 72%. Now, over a year later, it hasn't improved. Observers say it's almost completely empty. The glamour of this international city is fading. From quiet streets to waves of corporate layoffs, Shanghai faces unprecedented challenges. More and more citizens are feeling the downturn. Streets lined with closed shops, even in central business districts. The bustle of the past is hard to find.
韩国像这样半死不活的商场，究竟还有多少个？
How many malls in China are half dead like this? This should be the busiest street in the mall. Look around. All the big brands are here. Starbucks on the left, Chagee on the right, Semir and Li-Ning. The second floor looks the same. You might think it's out of the way, but it's not. It's next to the National Exhibition and Convention Center, and close to Hongqiao Railway Station. This area is the mall's main entrance. The design is actually great. The second floor walkway connects several buildings. So I can't help but ask, where has everyone gone?
什么情况？这可是上海的市中心啊，黄浦区啊。
What's going on? This is the heart of Shanghai, in Huangpu district, and this entire row is closed. It used to be packed with people. Since these stores shut down, hardly anyone comes here. Look, right across the street, all the shops are empty. Upstairs, empty too.
上海市中心的市中心啊。
This is the city center of Shanghai. See this? All these shops are empty, and upstairs as well. They're all being renovated, mostly office buildings. People might think office workers inside would eat lunch here or have small business dinners, but look, everything's blocked off. Third and fourth floors are the same, empty shops everywhere. On the ground floor, more empty shops. Even over there, a couple more. The whole mall feels lifeless. You can see maybe 50-60% of the shops are empty, either under renovation or just sitting there. Don't get the wrong idea. Once busy street shops, neighborhood stores, and more commercial areas are now plastered with signs that read, for transfer, rent, clearance, closed. Restaurants, clothing stores, milk tea shops, baby stores, hardware stores, they change hands constantly. Many shops barely survive opening before closing within 6 months. One vlogger noted that foreign companies leaving or relocating their headquarters is reshaping Shanghai's business landscape.
你们有没有发现上海正在被掏空？
Have you noticed Shanghai is being hollowed out? The number of companies and employees is dropping fast. Data shows that in 2024, an average of 5 to 6 companies moved from Shanghai to Suzhou every day. This isn't a forecast, it's already happening. You can see it in the city's office buildings and industrial parks vacancy rates. My client list reflects this. 5 years ago, 70% were in Shanghai. Now, 80% of my business trips are around Shanghai's outskirts. With so many companies leaving, the job market collapsing, and wealth shrinking, residents' spending habits are changing. Many are cutting back on travel, dining out, and non-essential purchases, saving more for possible future unemployment, illness, or retirement.
上海现在的现状，有很多大公司都在裁员。
Right now in Shanghai, many big companies are laying off staff and cutting salaries. Lots of small stores like ours are hovering on the edge of losses or closing. A few years ago, you could really feel people spending freely. Now, spending has tightened a lot. It's not that people don't want to consume. It's that most of them, despite looking flashy, actually have almost empty pockets. That's the reality in Shanghai today.
哎，你们有没有发现啊？上海现在在慢慢变穷啊？
Have you noticed Shanghai is slowly getting poorer? There aren't as many people eating at physical stores as before. Every year, people say they love Shanghai, but many who return here for work return home after just a few months. One person told me finding a job with a monthly salary of 8,000 RMB feels difficult. Rent and living costs are huge. Back home, the mortgage might be 2,500 RMB and casual spending could wipe out the month's budget. Sometimes it's still not enough. I really feel the era of downgraded consumption has arrived. Look now, many big hotels are offering fast food. Streets are quiet with more shops and customers. So is Shanghai getting poorer or are young people just afraid to spend?
整个爱琴海商场基本上是空了没多少商家的。
The entire Aegean Mall is basically empty. There aren't many shops left. It's such a great model, it's really a shame. Some people say this collapse is due to human factors. Does anyone know about Aegean Mall? A longtime resident of Shanghai, Zhang Hong, who's lived here nearly 70 years, says he's shocked by the current bleak scene. He mentioned that the famous Aegean shopping center used to be packed, but now it feels like a ghost town. From the outside, the lights are on, but inside, most shops are closed and there are hardly any people It's eerily quiet. The area around Shanghai Railway Station, one of the city's busiest transport hubs, shows a similar trend. Zhang Hong recalled that the underground passage near the new station used to be lined with shops and packed with people. Now, 9 out of 10 shops are closed. Only 1 is still open. It's completely different from before. He sighed, "I've lived almost 70 years and have never seen Shanghai this quiet." A resident in Jing'an district said that when going to Changping Road for lunch, almost every restaurant on the block was closed. Popular chains once favored by office workers have all shut down. The resident commented, "Even the city center can't hold up." Other observers noted that 10 years ago, Nanjing Road was packed. Now, foot traffic is probably less than a tenth of what it used to be. Large office spaces are empty, malls have few customers, and street-side shops are closing one after another. The city's former vibrancy seems to have vanished overnight, leaving locals wondering, where have all the people of Shanghai gone? Looking back over the past few decades, Shanghai has always been a magnet for talent and capital, both nationally and globally. Young people from all over China came here with dreams in their pockets, working hard in the skyscraper-filled central business district, spending in the glitzy shopping districts. They believed that with effort, they could settle down, buy a home, and sync with the rhythm of this international metropolis. But in recent years, that one-way influx has started to reverse. Some people are returning home to cities with lower living costs. Others are moving to second and third-tier cities, seeking more affordable lives. When earning isn't enough and costs are high, people vote with their feet. At the same time, the movement of the wealthy and high-net-worth individuals is even more noticeable. Some are accelerating immigration or global asset allocation to spread risk in a single market. On social media, people often observe that Shanghai's luxury retail and high-end services for affluent customers have declined sharply since 2022 and have only slowly recovered. Those who once spent lavishly in high-end malls are quietly disappearing. Their exit not only takes away spending power, but also reshapes Shanghai's commercial ecosystem. For those who stay, life is more stressful.
In just 2 days, I read an article saying that the sales clerks at the first food store in Nanjing East Road are now from out of town. Shanghai locals are gradually disappearing from every sector. Teachers aren't from Shanghai, doctors aren't from Shanghai, even community workers aren't. I thought about it. In the past, most outsiders came here for manual labor or small businesses. Now it's reversed. Shanghai locals are working for outsiders in their own city. In one office, almost everyone is from elsewhere, with only 1 or 2 locals. Native Shanghai residents have become a minority, even embarrassed to speak the local dialect. Why do I say Shanghai locals are disappearing? First, marriage rates among locals are very low. Many are in their 40s and 50s and still are married. Second, even if they marry, many don't want children, preferring to care for pets. Third, honestly, locals can't compete with outsiders. Those who come to Shanghai now are either exceptional students, extremely wealthy, or extremely hardworking.
The property market is the most direct window into these changes. Recently, a Shanghai real estate agent shared a video that sparked widespread discussion. Objectively speaking, Shanghai locals are gradually disappearing. Authoritative data shows that buyers with Shanghai IDs, starting with the digits 310, purchasing inside the inner ring, now account for less than 35% for the first time. What does this mean? For every 3 homes sold in Shanghai, 2 are bought by outsiders. Families who have lived here for generations are quietly putting their homes on the market and cashing out. The reasons are multiple. The main ones are local pessimism about China's economy and housing market, and some families' desire to preserve wealth through global asset allocation. Official data confirms just how active and complicated the market is. In March 2026, Shanghai saw 31,215 second-hand homes sold, a 176% increase from February and a year-on-year rise, hitting a recent high. April continued the momentum with 28,742 units sold, about 22% higher than the same month last year. But prices tell a different story. The base price hovered around 48,220 renminbi per square meter, roughly 10% lower than last year. This high volume at low prices isn't a sign that the market is fully recovering. Instead, it reflects more landlords selling under pressure. Selling more doesn't change the demand side, it only accelerates the downward trend. This wave of sale mirrors the emptiness in office buildings and shopping malls. The earlier vlogger Shanghai Xiaoyang captured the terrifying vacancy rate in Putou district, and it's not an isolated case. It reflects a structural problem in Shanghai's office market seen nationwide. Across the city, Grade A office vacancy rates hovered between 22% and 24% in 2025 to 2026, with some quarters reaching or exceeding 24%. Areas like Changfeng Zhenru in Putou, a hub of new supply, are especially pressured by new projects, creating high vacancy. Core areas like Nanjing West Road and Lujiacui still have stronger tenant bases, but even they face falling rents. Non-core areas rely on lower prices or industry incentives to attract companies. Once bright glass skyscrapers have now darkened floors. Companies are downsizing offices, embracing remote work, and industry adjustments all combine to suppress demand. Finance scholar Peng Hai notes that Shanghai has long been China's economic engine, and office rents are seen as a direct gauge of economic activity. He says this isn't just a drop in rent, demand is disappearing. Foreign firms, especially from the US, Japan, and South Korea, are leaving. These offices used to host their China headquarters. Now the headquarters are gone. Domestic companies are also leaving because business is tough. He adds, areas like Lujiacui and Hongqiao, once hubs for foreign and financial institutions and large enterprises, had no trouble filling offices. Now even financial institutions are downsizing. Some private companies are moving headquarters to cities with lower costs.
Hello InfoPerson, this is Anton, and today we're going to discuss a very unusual and somewhat exciting discovery that essentially confirms that the early solar system was a lot more crowded than we ever thought, and was also a much more violent place that basically ended up destroying quite a lot of smaller planets. Or in other words, that in the early solar system, there was very likely a lot more planets that no longer exist because they eventually got destroyed through various collisions, or possibly got kicked out by larger planets and are now traveling somewhere across the Milky Way. And though today we mostly focus on the existing 8 planets, based on a recent study and a tiny piece of rock discovered in the Sahara Desert, we now have definitive evidence of a massive, long-lost world that once orbited the Sun, but no longer does. Essentially, we're looking at evidence of a complete planetary destruction. And in this case, all this was discovered by studying the chemistry of this relatively rare meteorite, which allowed scientists to reconstruct what this unusual planet was potentially like. And so in this video, let's discuss some of the evidence and some of the discoveries, but also compare this to some of the other hypothetical propositions, such as the Planet 9 or the Fifth Giant. And of course discuss what this tells us about planetary formation and star system development. But before we start, let's discuss the meteorite and its initial discovery. And all of this starts in the Sahara Desert. Here, a discovery of Northwest Africa 12774 turned out to be very unusual. This was an extremely rare meteorite, commonly referred to as an angrite, a meteorite that usually kind of resembles something like this. And normally, most of them are characterized by their distinct mineral composition, mostly involving aluminium and titanium bearings, and certain minerals such as anorthite and troilite. But the reason they're so scientifically significant is because these are essentially some of the oldest igneous rocks, and also they seem to contain crystallization that very likely began 4.56 billion years ago. In other words, when it comes to meteorites, this is as old as it gets. And while scientists today are not entirely certain what parent body they came from, today it's actually believed that whatever created them was catastrophically destroyed sometimes during the early development of the solar system. But they are rare, and only 30 known specimens exist today. And interestingly, all of these specimens actually resemble a lot of terrestrial minerals quite a lot. In other words, whatever object they were created by seems to have been some kind of a large terrestrial body. But once again, out of 80,000 meteorites, we only have 68. So this is basically as rare as it gets. Although realistically, the most interesting fact about them is that these are the oldest volcanic rocks, and in most cases completely untouched by anything, because since their formation, they were essentially in outer space, traveling between planets. But unlike rocks from Earth and Mars, they also usually only contain very little silica, which is on Earth one of the primary ingredients for rocks, which is of course how we know that these are not from Earth and have to have come from a different body. But when it comes to this particular sample, NWA 12774, here there was also something that was kind of impossible for a small asteroid. In this case, Dr. Aaron Bell from CU Boulder has now discovered very strange crystals referred to as clinopyroxenes, and something that was also enriched in aluminium. Alright, in layman terms, he found crystals that can only form under extreme pressures, usually at least 7.5 kilobars, or basically pressures at least 17 times higher than on the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Wow. And we generally know that no asteroid produces such pressures, which means that the formation of these crystals must have been from something else. In other words, it suggested that wherever this meteorite came from was probably an object that was able to produce more pressure, and thus very likely had relatively high gravity. And so the point of this recent study was to essentially try to figure out what conditions were required to produce these crystals, because this would tell us about the parent body just a little bit more. You know, with the calculations now suggesting that the body in this case must have been at least 1,000 kilometers in radius, and possibly even larger, approximately 1,800 kilometers, or 3,600 kilometers in diameter, which is just a little bit bigger than the moon. Which is actually really interesting because it means that this object was at least moon-sized or even Mars-sized, and was extremely geologically active because, once again, these are volcanic rocks. Or at least it was volcanically active when it was finally destroyed. And so right now this provides us with the best evidence we have for the existence of a relatively massive, long-lost protoplanet that existed in the early solar system and then got completely destroyed through some kind of a collision with something else. And that means that all of these 68 angrates known to us came from the same object, orbiting the solar system for 4.5 billion years before crashing on Earth. In other words, unlike previous propositions that these meteorites came from smaller asteroids, cannot possibly explain the formation of these crystals. These clinopyroxene crystals can only form in high pressures, and thus very likely formed inside a somewhat large volcanic planet, which basically confirms some of the initial propositions, and of course some of the observations we've seen from other star systems that suggest that the early solar system and early star systems in general are extremely chaotic, basically containing these large planetary embryos, or these protoplanets, that grow pretty large pretty quick, but then eventually get destroyed through continuous collisions. And as we've discussed in one of the videos from a few months back, we've actually now seen this directly multiple times. As a matter of fact, at least one star system known to us has now experienced 2 such collisions in a single decade. This is the famous Fomalhaut system that's now experienced 2 such events. And while interestingly, in terms of the size of the objects colliding here, they're actually kind of similar in size, around 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers in diameter. And that of course suggests that a lot of these early planets generally follow an evolutionary path fundamentally different from terrestrial planets we see today. As a matter of fact, they most likely served as a kind of a building block for planets like Earth, Mars, Venus, and Mercury that the solar system eventually created, while also providing very important information for the famous giant impact hypothesis, or basically the collision between early Earth and Theia, which was also potentially very similar in size. Although right now we don't think that these meteorites came from Theia because the composition is just generally pretty different. And so now we know that Theia is not the only ghost planet, or not the only destroyed planet, but there's definitely evidence for at least one more. Right now this one though doesn't have a name. Although here I also have to briefly mention that this idea of hypothetical planets is of course not new. As a matter of fact, historically, astronomers even proposed that a planet called Phaethon potentially explained the existence of the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and basically its destruction created the asteroid belt. But today we know that this is unlikely to have been the case, because the asteroid belt does not have enough mass, and likely never formed a planet because the Jupiter's mass was just a little bit too high, and it continuously disrupted its formation.
So this is
then
what
we
I
of course
mean.
have
So
the
it had to
propositions
be
for the
more of a
mysterious
Jupiter
Planet
moon
9
thing.
that we've also discussed in previous videos. Nothing new has been discovered about its existence or non-existence. But there's also the mysterious Planet 5, or the fifth giant, that scientists believe might have existed early on, but that was lost 4 billion years ago, either crashing into the Sun or possibly escaping because of the interaction with Jupiter and Saturn. And the reason scientists believe there was a fifth giant is because of the current architecture in the solar system that can only be explained if a lot of planets moved over time. And that motion was most likely the result of that fifth planet that no longer exists. This is actually a pretty well-known hypothesis, and it's technically known as the Nice model. It describes the migration of planets and the disappearance of that fifth giant. But, once again, NWA 12774 provides a physical proof that these large early worlds were not just mathematical simulations, but were definitely real. With this meteorite preserving a completely different pathway for how planets can develop, using ingredients that are not present on Earth or Mars we see today. Although, because this is just the first study, there is really not much else we know about this planet, or if the other Angrite meteorites also came from the same object as well. Although at the same time, it implies that some of the models of planetary formation also have to be basically reworked just a little bit. Because unlike previous assumptions, planet formation was not just a simple linear process involving rocks growing larger and sticking together, but potentially involved massive collisions that happened over and over, just like we've seen in the Fomalhaut system since 2004. As a matter of fact, it's quite possible that many minerals that exist on Earth today, and even the overall structure of planet Earth, possibly formed as a result of these multiple collisions that eventually started to coalesce into very specific planets that would actually be very different if these collisions were different as well. And that's because the materials that we actually see inside this lost world are fundamentally different from anything we've seen on Earth or on Mars. In other words, these early minerals were extremely different and very likely required a lot of chemical processes and seem to have transformed dramatically, possibly because of these multiple collisions over time, which I guess suggests that the early solar system was kind of experimenting with different types of planetary recipes, although most planets obviously did not survive. In the end, we only got 4 terrestrial planets and 4 gas planets. But in terms of science, this also reminds us that there's still a lot of work for us to do right here on Earth. As Dr. Bell mentions, even today there are many meteorites just sitting in drawers that have not been actually analyzed using these modern techniques and potentially hide a lot of different secrets about these ancient worlds. In other words, many of these meteorites might have come from a lot of similar objects involving these large planets. And so for all we know, many of these meteorites contain evidence of dozens of these protoplanets just waiting to be identified. Although just as a side note and as a fun fact, I also wanted to briefly mention the now disproven hypothesis about Vulcan, that other small terrestrial planet that 19th century astronomers believed existed very close to the Sun, because it was the only way they could explain why Mercury's orbit did not actually fit Newtonian predictions. And this example is kind of important to remember because sometimes these hypothetical propositions can be easily explained by new theories. Because just a few years after this initial proposition, Albert Einstein was able to disprove this and was able to explain all of this with the newly formed theory of general relativity. It explained Mercury's orbit through the frame dragging effect from the Sun and did not require any extra planets. And so here I guess it's a kind of important reminder that sometimes we just don't really have certain explanations yet, which means that even in this case, there might still be some alternative explanations. So in this case, only time will tell if this is indeed a remnant of an ancient planet. But with more evidence, and specifically geochemical evidence, we'll definitely have certain conclusions. And so in summary, the history of the solar system is definitely much more dynamic and much more chaotic than any previous standard models. And today, astronomy has moved from these hypothetical planets like Phaethon or Vulcan into physical understanding involving chemical reactions and propositions in regards to planets like Theia, and in this case, this unnamed world, this Angrite parent body. And so the discoveries from this tiny meteorite from Africa is opening a completely new window into the history of the solar system, and is potentially opening a new field of astroarchaeology that will help us understand the formation of the solar system just a little bit better. On that note, once we get more data and more studies, we'll come back and discuss this more in some of the future videos. Until then, thank you for watching, subscribe, come back tomorrow to learn something else, support this channel on Patreon where you can find additional videos without any ads, and
All right, how's it going out there, everyone? Welcome back here. To a Friday, made it out here to the weekend. Hope everyone's having a good one out there. Not too hot like it is here in Northern California. It's supposed to be about 104 degrees again here today. Hundreds all weekend. Not cool. 10:46 a.m. Friday, June 12, 2026. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D Globe shows a 2.5 in the red flag out here. Looks like they're across the Java Trench. Also some activity up in Alaska with a 1.6, one of the latest quakes there on the globe. Also some activity stirring up here in Nevada. We'll get to the Cascadia activity here in a minute, but Nevada shaking out here slightly. 4.0 earthquake. This earthquake originally came in here as a 4.5 early this morning, just when maybe some folks were getting up for work or school or whatever you're doing out there. 5 o'clock in the morning, a little shaking going on there. Pretty shallow earthquake as well for that 4-pointer. It looks like that was felt around the Fallon area, also over towards Reno, Nevada. This has been a hot spot of earthquake activity here recently. Let me show you guys the map up here. Here's where the 4-pointer struck in that cluster of activity. Notice a little bit more clustering going on down south here. The big swarm, kind of a interesting feature out here in the desert. There's a couple different mountain ranges out here, fault systems that run, well, you name it, all over the place. But this is just a little on the interesting side to see this much activity. We got 646 earthquakes in the last 3 months alone. Now the largest magnitude is going to be that 5.7 earthquake that struck out here in the middle of April, just about 2 months ago. 5.2, the largest aftershock. That happened a couple weeks there following the 5.7, and a number of 4s in there as well. Obviously, there's still some potential that we could see something larger out here, but that's a lot of earthquake activity, and it seems like it's migrated here towards the southwest. The more recent activity, though, it does look like it's up here on the northern end, a little bit closer to the Fallon area, but just kind of watching it. It's a little area of about 10, 15, maybe 20 miles here of activity. That some of this activity runs against what the typical fault lines are out here as far as the north to south trend. There's some that go west to east up here, but definitely an interesting area, so we're just gonna keep an eye on that. Some earthquake activity out there this morning, and one here in the last hour. The rest of Nevada looks pretty quiet, but since we got Fallon kicking up here, if it follows a similar trend like we've been seeing here in the last few months, we should see areas northeast of Tonopah kick back up around Warm Springs. That's been a hot spot of activity as well. Maybe even some further activity around Nevada. I've been watching this trend go on here where it starts up here in the north, and then we'll get these various swarms soon thereafter across regions there outside of Warm Springs and the Las Vegas area. Southern California, a little spotty down there, nothing big going on, nothing above 2.5. This is all small microquake activity. I don't see anything of any unusual activity for now. The San Francisco area, a couple earthquakes out there this morning and from yesterday, but look at those. Those are very small earthquakes. We've got about 4 of them out there. Northern California and offshore here of Oregon. Looks like another earthquake there off into the strike slip zone of the this is going to be the Blanco fracture zone here. Strike slip boundary that kind of further stresses regions down in this direction here, which is the southern end of the Cascadia. It's been a little active out here recently. We'll check out the tremor counts here later on this evening, but the 274 epicenters of slow slips were up underneath the northern end here of the Cascadia. Nothing big going on there for now. Texas and Oklahoma, got oil fields and earthquakes. One earthquake out there in Canton, North Carolina last night. Aside from that, eastern portion of the country quiet. Decent uptick of earthquake here across the plate boundary, as you can see, but this has been a little quiet here recently, so it was due to fill in. Got a number of earthquakes out there, mixed bag of activity from yesterday and today. Philippines still seeing a good cluster of earthquakes there, the 3 and 4 range. No new, it doesn't look like there's any 5-pointers out there to report, just 4s. Hopefully that will continue to die down. I'm still watching this area north here, Manila Trench through Taiwan up through the south coast of Japan. It's still quiet. If you've been watching my videos, I keep mentioning how quiet it is. That's a little on the unusual side here. So just keep an eye on that hot spot, or quiet spot for now. Some further activity off the Kamchatka area up there in Russia. Let's see, some movement off the coast here of Mexico. Looks like a 4.3, maybe a couple 4s in there. Nothing big going on. Same for the Central America area. The Peru Chile Trench, quite a few 2s and 3s. 3.3 coming in right now. Atlantic Ocean, quiet. Mediterranean area, just 2s and 3s. Nothing big going on there from what I can see. The largest magnitude here, got a decent cluster up here along the Aleutian Trench, though. Look at that. And then it just comes to a halt right about here. So we did have one earthquake out here within that seismic gap zone a couple days back. 2 days ago we had a 5-pointer, but I'm still watching this area. You really have to pay attention here to these quiet zones because the Pacific Plate, the accumulated slip rate up here is quite high. We've got all this movement happening all around it. These quiet zones are sticking out like a sore thumb, and that's an area to watch. This area up here and also the Manila Trench northward, south coast of Japan are just unusually quiet. We got another earthquake coming into the bay. Hopefully I didn't jinx that. 2.4, a little bit larger than the small microquake activity I was just talking about. That's outside of Vallejo. 0.2 miles deep. Not 2 miles, but a very shallow earthquake. Let's see. Anything else popping out here on the globe? New Zealand. A couple 4s out there between North and South Island. Bunch of deep activity here across the Tonga Trench, but that's fairly typical. Hawaii, let's go out here and check this real quick, see what we got. I don't see anything big going on. All earthquakes below the 2.5 threshold. We will double check the inflation model here, see what's going on this Friday. Oh, it's miserable out here in California. It's hot. Very hot. Going up here, this is the inflation chart. It is current. We're almost very close to the level seen here back in the beginning of June when we had the last eruption there at Kilauea Volcano. So we're getting close. Let's see if there's any update put out here. Nope. Just the latest one there from almost 2 weeks ago. Let me double check this here and see. Yeah, well, this was put out yesterday. Kilauea Volcano is not erupting. The summit eruption is paused following the end of episode 48. Forecast models indicate that episode 49 is likely to occur between June 13th and the 15th. So we're getting close here. Space weather activity. Yeah, I know there's a whole lot of excitement here on the forecast, but I don't think that's going to play out. There was a couple CMEs here directed away from Earth, but these guys are thinking that we're going to get hit with it. Not necessarily Solar Ham, but the Space Weather Prediction Center. But so far, the last 2 run-ups for the Aurora potential has been flops there for the most part. So I'm thinking this would be either this is 3rd time's a charm, and we'll get it, or it's just going to completely miss us. And that's for tonight, maybe tomorrow night. Looks like overnight here, maybe a G2 class storm. I was looking at the path there, the track of the CME, and it's facing away from the planet. So if it was a dead hit, then I'd say yes, we're going to get some auroras, but I wouldn't count on it. Nothing coming in right now. Pretty quiet conditions. Flaring activity down into the B flare category still. Just got a number of sunspots out here, but they're all kind of fading off into the sun, so to speak. A couple areas back over here on the eastern limb of the sun, just quiet. Really, I don't expect much there, folks. 1% chance for X flare. M flare around 20% chance. C flare, I'm thinking about 75, maybe 80% chance there. That's my forecast there for the solar flare activity. As far as any neighbors visiting us here from outer space, do we have any close encounters out here? This one's coming in tomorrow. Oh, today, excuse me. That's coming in today. That, fortunately for us, is a safe distance. That's a massive, fairly large building-size asteroid, 470 feet. A couple new ones here on the map, and they're fairly large as well. See that? This one's coming in under 1 million miles, but that's from June 9th here. How come they haven't updated this? Yeah, they should have updated it. What's going on? Hopefully they're not on vacation. Got all these big space rocks going by and nobody's monitoring it. I'm sure they are, hopefully. All right, Storm Prediction Center for severe weather out here today. We have a slight risk across a couple areas here of the country. Main threat today, well, there's a tiny little tornado potential there in the green. Main threat, yeah, appears to be some high wind, some wind damage potential in the hatched area. That's the main regions there that could see the highest probability. Also over here in this red zone. Anywhere, though, out here that's listed for the wind potential could have some wind damage. And a little bit of hail threat, main potential over here across the areas in the yellow. Aside from that, we're cooking out here. I want to show you guys a neat little marine feature that's going on here off the Bay Area. Let's see if we can see it on here. I see what's causing that. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. Look at this. So over the last couple days, we've had a strong offshore wind event here. This is a marine layer that normally hugs the coastline. That got blown off. If we look here, this thing is spinning like a low pressure out here. This model is not all that fast. That doesn't, I mean, but if I were to go back further, that's 1 hour. Let's go back 6 hours. I can actually show you guys, make it worth it. You'll see this thing kind of spinning out there, right there. Kind of a neat little feature. But it looks like the marine layer wants to come back. That would mean cooler temperatures there for the Bay Area and the coastline, but here in the valley, we're still going to be, you know, just cooking out here, just hot. That was 7 a.m. right now. You know, yeah, that's about right. We're supposed to be up around 103, 105 today, here where I'm at. Not much relief overnight either. It's been a little scorching out here. 106 recording in Willows. Yeah, just Calusa 106. No Delta breeze. It looks like it's trying to come in. But if you look here over the next couple days, here's just 106 tomorrow, and then Sunday 102, 104. You know, it's just, oh man, I'm just done with this already. And we still have the rest of June, July, and August. Those 2 months ahead can easily see these temperatures or exceed the temperatures that you see here from my neck of the woods. It's like a Death Valley out here. I'm not even joking. But then again, even up in Oregon and Washington, they've been a little hot as well. So looks like the cool areas are up north, North Dakota, maybe into Canada. Might have to take a trip up into Canada. I'm a cool weather guy. I'm not the scorcher, sit out in the sun, bake, and enjoy the heat. No,
I am.
Anyway, folks, we'll see you guys out here. Wait a minute. Got two.
Major questions exist about this new deal with Iran.
That deal with Iran is worse than no deal. If we cannot secure a good deal, if we cannot force the Islamic Republic into accepting total humiliating surrender, we should keep the pressure on the regime and force them into surrender.
I still believe it's going to take a significant kinetic action to bring the Iranians to heal in a way that delivers on the outcome. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's an arrangement that the Iranians have not only agreed to a deal, which Martha, you and I both know, a piece of paper is largely worthless when it comes to the Islamic Republic and the IRGC, but I hope he's got a set of arrangements there that can do exactly what has been described.
And that's what a lot of people are worried about. But here's what the president had to say.
That doesn't bother me at all. We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents, which should get done over the next few days. Probably have a signing maybe in Europe, and it's a great thing. Stock market's up 1,000 points. That means they like the deal. See, that means they like the market goes down. That means they don't like the deal. But it's been up. Oil's dropped.
That's true.
It's not coming down to, I think, even lower than it was before. I said I was in Iowa. It was $1.85 a gallon. And I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to get pretty close. It's going to come down, and when oil comes down, everything else comes down. And most importantly, we have a deal that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which was the whole purpose of what we had to go through to get
will they
this.
sign it?
Very big thing. But we have a signing soon, and the documents
So we're going to know. De-escalation. There you go. No war, Australia. Stupid people.
They want it.
They called and asked Trump to stop.
I think a lot of good relationships can ensue from this. I just spoke with the leaders of many of the countries that were mentioned in the release. I just spoke to Bibi. I spoke to the great heads of nations, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, and others. And we're going to be talking to Turkey, President Erdogan, who's great. And it's really a wonderful thing with a lot of spirit. Pakistan was fantastic. The Prime Minister and I call him the general. He's a general. He's a great general. He's so great that he's actually a field marshal, step above. And they're all very happy. The whole Middle East is happy, and long beyond the Middle East, the Strait will open as soon as we have it signed.
But the question is, isn't that a lifeline for Iran? And that's what a lot of people are worried about. They're saying that if a piece of paper gets signed and then certain restrictions on this country, like sanctions or the Strait or whatever, if anything goes that helps these guys, doesn't it just enable them and strengthen them and embolden them and make them want to play games? Or is that not something the president's worried about?
But he's against it. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, on Iran.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, on Iran, how confident are you that there will be a signing this weekend? Because you have come close to sealing a deal, but at the last minute it has fallen apart. And
it'll be soon. Maybe this weekend.
And has the Supreme Leader approved this deal, sir?
I understand the answer is yes.
And when the deal is signed, is the United States going to immediately lift the blockade?
Yes, that's part of the deal.
And
you'll have oil prices dropping like a rock.
And sir, have you actually secured an agreement on the discussions about the nuclear material and the nuclear negotiations?
Yes, conceptually on that, and nobody's getting close to it because it's buried under a mountain, basically. There's B-2 bombers that do.
But has Iran committed to not pursuing a nuclear weapon, or will there be more negotiations on that down the line?
They will not have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that. There will be no, which is the whole reason, which is a big part of the reason.
That was the main thing that was holding up all of these negotiations. Now, we've got a few moving pieces in play. The Trump administration was firing tomahawks into Iran, and the government called and said, hey, stop the strikes, we want to negotiate. And now the last piece of the puzzle, the whole nuclear deal, because remember, this entire time Iran wanted to sign a non-nuclear deal. Well, now it's going to be a deal where they're not allowed to have nuclear weapons. And that was the one thing that this entire process was waiting for. But listen to what they ask next.
They will not only not have, they will not purchase, develop in any way, in any way, shape, or form a nuclear weapon. They will not have a nuclear weapon.
Good.
Mr. President, just to follow up on that, you have said before that Iran and the United States were close to a deal. It has not happened yet. Why are you so convinced that this time is different?
Because they've taken a pounding. They've taken a pounding like very few people could take. and they want to make the deal a lot more than I do. And we could have had it done the other way, I guess, but it would have taken longer. They got hit very hard recently, you know, and I don't like to have to do things that way, but I felt it was necessary. It's a great deal for the United States and for the Middle East, and I think ultimately great for Iran because they'll be able to build up their country and other countries. I really believe it's a regime change because I find these people to be much more rational than the people that are no longer with us.
So we have regime change.
Knocked out the first team of leadership, the second team of leadership. There's a different group, there's a different level, and I think it's frankly a smarter level, and it's a level that has reason. And they've all approved the deal. Everybody's approved the deal. Now we'll get it finished up, and hopefully that'll be done.
Now, here's the thing about this. What have we been hearing about Trump from his political enemies? That he's a megalomaniac and a fascist and he wants to destroy the world and get us into a forever war. But what we just heard is the exact opposite. We're talking about regime change that has happened without U.S. troops on the ground in this country. We're also talking about a future for the Iranian people which exists because of the ceasefire, which didn't totally wipe out their oil infrastructure. This country will be able to rebuild itself. And there's going to be major accountability because carrier aircraft groups are still over there in the Middle East. If these guys don't show up, if they don't sign something, we're going to immediately be able to do something, and we're going to know if they start playing any games immediately. But there's more.
We will not have Iran having a nuclear weapon, which is very important to these people behind me. We can talk about fishing. There won't be anybody to fish. The fish will still be around, I guess. They're probably going to be affected too. We're not going to let it happen. So Iran will essentially, most important paragraph to me, Iran will in no way, shape, or form have a nuclear weapon or purchase a nuclear
This takes away their ability to be a regime.
When it comes to nuclear, you said this was just the concept of that agreement. So is this just essentially setting the stage for deeper talks on nuclear?
It's a very strong memorandum of understanding. That is a little conceptual, but it's something that's going to get done. And if it doesn't get done for any reason, which I can't imagine that not happening, they want to sign it as much as I do or more. I would say they want to sign it more, maybe a lot more. But it's a very detailed memorandum of understanding, also agreed to by many other countries that have great influence over them.
Okay.
And everybody wants it done, so it's going to get done.
So basically, it's not just the U.S. telling Iran, hey, sign this or something happens. All of Iran's neighbors are in favor of this agreement. They want to see them sign it too, so they're getting massive pressure from all sides. Essentially a coalition, which does not include Europe for some odd reason, but they're getting pressure. They're isolated. The student protests have started happening again inside that country. Things are changing in likely the most peaceful manner possible, but people still have questions. Are these guys going to be able to weasel out of this agreement? What happens if they start playing games? How soon will the U.S. act if they do?
And we were hitting them very hard for the last 3 days. We're going to hit them even harder tonight. They knew that. We told them exactly what we were going to do. We explained it exactly because they had no Navy, they had no Air Force, they had any weapons of detection.
Yeah, they can't stop it.
And so we could tell them exactly what there wasn't a thing they could have done about it. And we won this war militarily very early on. The only thing we didn't win was the fake news was, no matter if they could have raised the white flag of surrender and the fake news would say, oh, they did wonderfully. They didn't do wonderfully.
Yeah, they would have said they won.
But you know what? They've got a chance to build a country. Their country is largely demolished. Again, their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is gone, everything's gone. Their leadership is gone many times over. Even many people from this leadership is gone, but we found them to be rational, and they're going to make a deal.
So it sounds like we're going to have peace. It sounds like they're going to agree to something and stick to it, because during the negotiations, the president and his team basically said, look, these are the targets we're going to hit. They slow-walked it for him. They said, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this if you don't sign a deal. And the actions started taking place. The strikes started happening exactly the way that they were told it was going to happen, and they couldn't do anything about it. The attacks were revealed in advance, and it was like, look, we're going to do this. We don't want to do this. Don't make us do this. And then it started happening, and the regime was like, look, they told us they were going to hit these things. They're hitting them. Do we really want this? And they decided to say no.
And I'll tell you what, it's a great deal. You know why it's a great deal? Because they will never have a nuclear weapon.
That's the only thing we wanted.
Is the amount of time that has to pass between this memorandum of understanding and the final deal being done?
Well, we hope it's going to go relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Is there 60 or 90?
I mean, the straits are going to open immediately. It's upon signing. Maybe it'll be Saturday, Monday.
Saturday.
To get from this to a final deal.
We think it's going to go pretty quickly. I don't want to say a deadline, because if I say a deadline, you'll say, oh, he didn't meet the deadline. This is like, it's not going to matter much because it's going to get signed. And the strait is open. But the straits have been open for a number of months already, and we just didn't know about it.
Right, that's
You as reporters weren't able to get it. I just announced yesterday that we brought a lot of ships through. Nobody knew about it. I guess we did a pretty good job, Peter, right? But we brought many, many ships across.
Yeah, Iran's had nothing this whole time.
Hundreds of millions of barrels of oil were brought across. And there wasn't a thing that anybody could have done about that.
Yeah, they couldn't stop it. Karg Island.
Well, now
this is the big question, because Trump said before these strikes happened, not only, hey, leaders, look at this. These are the plans that we have. These are the targets that we're going to hit. He also said yesterday that we were going to invade Karg Island, take it over, and run their oil industry like we are now running Venezuela. And here's his answer to whether or not that is still on the table.
Well, now it would be. If we signed this agreement, it would be. They weren't so thrilled when they heard that that's what I would have done. And I just don't think, I like it. Great. Look at Venezuela, how well that's worked out. We paid for that war many times over. And many, many times over. We have millions of barrels of oil from Venezuela going to Houston. And we're working great with the Venezuelan government. Couldn't be better. It's a real
that's awesome.
Good relationship, really good relationship.
It's going to help their people.
Venezuela's been amazing. This is a larger situation. Actually, less oil. Venezuela has a lot of oil, but we think of it. We spend X dollars. We paid for it many, many times. When was the last time you heard that? Many times over, we paid for it. You ever think you'd see that in this country? We go to wars, we end up with just blessing. We come home, nothing happens. Venezuela was amazing, and this is amazing. Yeah.
Mr. President, are you considering
So Trump says the invasion of Karg Island is now off the table if they sign this agreement. So we've got a few contingencies in place. First of all, the strikes ended because the regime called and said, hey, we want to sign an agreement. Second, the invasion of Karg Island, that's still on the table. That means the invasion force is going to stick around in the Persian Gulf area and be ready to go in case this thing doesn't get signed. So the threats and the accountability behind all of this are still there.
What if they do? What if they back out? What if they continue belligerence over the next several days?
That would be a mistake.
Then what? Drop the hammer?
Yes, absolutely. And I think a resumption of the strikes that were planned tonight, probably a little extra added on top to go after the IRGC leadership specifically while attacking very aggressively any remaining military capacity along the Straits of Hormuz. There's been some talk of incursions into or occupying Karg Island. I'm sure that's not the only one, but it needs to be very targeted. And I think the taking of territory, say some of the islands that the Iranians took in 1971 from UAE, could also be on the table. And I think that got their attention in Tehran.
That has a lot to do with the external pressure that the regime is now facing, because remember, the memorandum of understanding, it's not just between the U.S. and Iran. All of the neighbors want to see this happen. Everybody wants to see a hostile, belligerent force that is targeting everyone indiscriminately during this conflict stop doing that. And there are islands that are disputed. There's territory people want back. There's a lot on the table for Iran to lose if they don't sign.
I think there were two key points in his Truth Social. One was the blockade's going to stay in place. That is a powerful, powerful force against the regime. It's denying them hundreds of millions of dollars each and every week. And then second, he said, look, we're going to make sure that we get this in a place that's executable and verifiable. If we can achieve all of that, and the bombing that took place over the last 48 hours convinced the regime to capitulate, all to the good. But
so it sounds like the blockade is going to stay in place. The strait will open, but the blockade on Iran itself, the economic blockade that the U.S. has in place, that's going to stick around. So it's not that the regime is getting a deal that will enable them to survive and rebuild and come back stronger, but they're getting a deal that if they obey it, if they sign and they agree and they do not lie and they keep their promises and they pursue peace, will allow their economy to reopen and will allow this country to come back. And those right there are the conditions for future regime change inside of this country, because you're not a regime if you can't threaten your neighbors. You're not a regime if you don't have this massive offensive capability that scares every single person around you and gets them to do what you want, scares the UK and France and gets them to stay over there in Europe and not help out, even when the United States is decisively taking the lead with all of our Arab allies to bring about a peaceful solution to begin with.
Regime to capitulate, all to the good. But there's still many unanswered questions about precisely how this will evolve.
Yes.
And second, I do want to see what the Gulf Arab states actually have contributed to this. This will turn out to be a very important element of the United States being able to achieve its objectives.
They were fighting the whole time.
Absolutely. You used a word there that is so important in the study of war that you know better than any of us: capitulation. So the question is, has Iran capitulated? Is the knowledge that 100 million barrels got out, 200 ships, that there is a secretive effort that's been underway and successful to get oil out of Iran? Number two, which was just mentioned by the general, this quote from Scott Bessent, which I think probably got quite a bit of attention. He said the Iranian regime will lose the zero-sum game it's playing. Any damage it inflicts on our allies in the Gulf will be paid for with funds extracted from Iranian accounts.
This is what Trump was talking about. He said the operation in Venezuela, we went in there, it's paid for itself many times over. That's the same thing happening here. So these are the opposite of wars that last forever, cost billions of dollars, and just bankrupt our country while we have problems at home. These are actually paying off. And we're going to get peace. As a result, the world's going to be a better place, and America's not going to go bankrupt. I mean, that's a good thing. That is a conflict of principle. Yes, all conflict is bad, but there are conflicts that you have no choice to engage in, and this was certainly one of them. The president said he didn't want to do what he had to do, but it looks like it's working out better than perhaps any other fake news reported.
Any tolls paid to the Persian Gulf Strait Authority will be offset by funds extracted from their accounts. I think this is an idea that's going to land not very well with Iran, and I think it makes a ton of sense. What do you think?
They have no choice.
Martha, I think those are both huge steps forward in putting even more pressure on what is clearly a weakened and fractured set of leaders right inside of Iran. It's always been a question about who is it we're actually negotiating with. I think what Secretary Bessent has said and what President Trump has done is making that even more difficult for the leadership inside of Iran. You know, I'm mindful too. I remember when we were prepared to take a strike against Iran in the president's first term, he canceled it a handful of hours before. But it wasn't but a few days later we were right back at it. When the Iranian regime reneged on its commitment to make sure that we protected American lives, we followed through with a strike on General Soleimani. So while the president says that he's not going to strike tonight, which is what his Truth Social says, I think the regime knows that the risk to Karg, and what is really the lifeline for the regime, I think he understands that the risk to Karg and their economic well-being is going to force them to a place where they will either capitulate by agreement and acknowledging that the United States needs to do the necessary to get the enriched material out of the country and prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, or that we'll do it, we'll essentially take it out of the hands of the leaders.
Wow. Okay. So former Secretary of State here, he says that the invasion threat of Karg Island had a lot more to do with this than the strikes. It was the two of these things in tandem, because you have the plan that is revealed, hey guys, here's our military plan. And by the way, on top of that, there's going to be an invasion. That right there has brought about this negotiation that we're seeing, this memorandum of understanding that we couldn't get, because remember, for the last 60 days, what's Iran been saying? We're not talking about the nuclear program. We're not going to talk about it. We'll do all this other stuff, but the nuclear stuff, forget about it. We have no agreement. And now they called and said, we have an agreement.
So they've lost a lot. We know that. They've lost all of their major equipment for their Navy, for their ships, all of that. But they keep sort of harassing in the strait. And I think that, the president's statement that he was ready to take Khark Island, he said, I've always wanted it. There was pushback. And obviously this is the debate that goes on in terms of decision making. But, if we were to take Khark Island, and the subtitle in this reporting is President says U.S. will assume control of Tehran's energy markets. And they've seen what happened in Venezuela. Do you think that was one of the pieces that, if this turns out well, may have been crucial?
They'd be terrified of that, man.
Undoubtedly, Martha, the regime knows that the lifeline, the ability to continue to pay the besieged, to continue to purchase weapons, depends on Khark and the capacity. Khark is used to move their energy into the Gulf. To lose control of that, and they know the United States could take it if we were determined to do so, and President Trump chose to take that action. I think that undoubtedly is in their calculus in a way that wasn't there just 48 or 72 hours ago.
Now, Iran was banking on the fake news media to convince the American people that this was a forever war, and that any threat by the Trump administration to put boots on the ground, even if it's Khark Island, where you just have their oil export hub, means, it's another Iraq, it's another Afghanistan. The president lied, putting American lives in harm's way. But that didn't happen. The president said, look, I'm willing to take this. And there were the strikes, and there was no pushback. In fact, many people saw that and said, well, I think the president should take Khark Island, because why did they get to be a regime with this oil export hub that's just sitting there and no one's touching it? It almost seemed like they were getting a free pass that was allowing them to rebuild to some extent.
Nothing really ends in this. Nothing really changes until they are gone, and until the people of Iran have a chance to sort of create their own future. Do you see these pieces as leading to destabilization of the regime and fall eventually?
Martha, I do. I think every day this pressure remains on the regime. The people of Iran see that the United States is with them, and it creates more opportunity for them. We won't know the day. We won't be able to predict this, but I'm confident if we continue to do the necessary, the things that are good for the United States of America, that the people of Iran will ultimately benefit from that as well. And to your point, the regime, the hardliners and the IRGC, the folks who have been controlled for now almost 5 decades, will ultimately lose their capacity to destroy the lives of the Iranian people and threaten our Gulf Arab allies, Israel, and the United States of America.
That's it, because you stop being a regime when you lose the ability to pursue nuclear weapons, when you do not have an arsenal of ballistic missiles you can fire at anybody. Remember, the threat with Iran was that if you take us on, we will make it so costly for you and for your allies that it won't even be worth it. They thought they had a deterrence factor with all of their weaponry, with all of their drones, with all of their missiles, but it turns out that they did not, and now they don't have any of that stuff, and they cannot pursue a nuclear weapon. That right there, that is the path to peace. That is the path to freedom for the people that live in this country, because the people will not have to deal with an emboldened, militarized regime that has every ability and apparently the willingness to go after its own people if they step out of line in some manner. Also, the neighbors aren't going to be afraid anymore. This will bring peace. And what he just said, this idea that what's good for the American people is also good for the people of Iran, that's 100% the case. They need to have a free country. They need to get their country back. It's been stolen from them. This remains a rescue mission for an entire population of great people who are very, very close to the light at the end of the tunnel. What do you think about that? I'll see you in the next video.
Welcome to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, it is Friday. That's right. We've got lots of news we're going to get to today. And we've got our White House rundown and all the happening around the nation, especially out of the Oval Office. Big developments we're going to be getting into. So before we do, I just want to welcome you to this live stream on X, Next News, as well as YouTube and Rumble and Kick and Trump Daily Posts. Brian, are we good? No, you got to unmute yourself. Okay, here we go. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, bringing you the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming partner, Trump Daily Posts. And now the pace from the Trump White House is the story is moving somewhere the establishment never wanted to go. Declassification. Not another cable news shouting match, not another expert panel. Actual records. DNI Tulsi Gabbard is expected to release declassified intelligence on COVID origins right as her office drops new evidence about U.S.-funded biolabs overseas, and whistleblowers say key findings were buried. The question is no longer what we were allowed to believe. The question is, what do the documents show? And that's why this matters so much. The biggest development here is not one personality or a soundbite, not even an agency leak. Is that the Trump administration appears determined to drag the COVID origin fight out of the fog of spin and into the sunlight of documentary evidence. And that changes everything. Because for years, Americans were pushed to treat this as a debate over opinions, conspiracy theory versus approved narrative. But once records are declassified, the debate becomes about actions, decisions, and accountability. Who funded what? Which labs handled dangerous pathogens? And what did intelligence analysts conclude? What was softened, buried, or withheld from Congress and the public? See, Gabbard has already released material pointing to past U.S. government funding for more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries, including Ukraine, while supporting President Trump's order to end federal funding for dangerous gain-of-function research worldwide. That means the conversation is no longer just about Wuhan. It's about a much bigger biosafety system and whether the American people were deliberately kept in the dark about risks that they were forced to live with. And while we're talking about systems built to confuse the public, there's another one hitting millions of American families right in the wallet. So pay attention to this, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never look at it again. That's the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even knowing it. Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your needs, then help you compare plans that actually fit. Some people save real money, in some cases as much as $1,100 a year. So call the number you see on your screen. Call Chapter at 910-728-4109 and get help from someone who works for you. Now back to a story where Americans are also demanding clear answers instead of managed confusion. See, here's the twist. The corporate press still doesn't want to say out loud, this is no longer just about where COVID started. It's about whether parts of the intelligence and public health bureaucracy shaped the story before the facts were fully on the table. A whistleblower testified that CIA analysts concluded a lab leak was the most likely origin and that those findings were buried, softened, or withheld. Senator Rand Paul says documents and sworn testimony tell a very different story than what the public was fed. And if that's true, this becomes an oversight fight, not just an origins fight. So we have this from the Washington Times. The Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, in coming days is expected to release declassified intelligence documents on the origins of COVID-19, a disclosure that comes after years of disputed and controversial assessments on whether the pandemic originated in a Chinese lab or came from a wild animal. And remember, during COVID, you couldn't even post about that online. You would be canceled immediately, your accounts terminated, and you would never be allowed on social media again. So the conspiracy theorists were, of course, right again. So the Washington Times reports the headline, the fight's moving out of theory and into declassified records. Now Tulsi Gabbard goes on camera herself, releasing intelligence on more than 120 biolabs, warning the public was kept in the dark. She says this: today I'm releasing never-before-seen intelligence revealing new evidence of past U.S. government funding for more than 120 biolabs in support of President Trump's executive order. Here she is.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of long-standing U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to long-standing threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage. Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people. Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens, and in some cases included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people. And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world. Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs. Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist. Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America. Now, ODNI will continue working closely with partners across the U.S. government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain, to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world.
Now, if we could only arrest Fauci, right? So she widened this from Wuhan to a much bigger biolab gain-of-function accountability. Next CIA whistleblower claims her declassification teams blocked, monitored, and stripped of files while digging into the COVID origins cover-up.
The CIA refused to provide information necessary to understand why analytical standards at the CIA were violated. The CIA illegally monitored the computer and phone usage of DIG personnel, their investigations, and contact with whistleblowers. These were Americans being spied upon illegally while executing duties directed by the president and under the authority of the Director of National Intelligence. One CIA contractor assisting with the DIG's investigation into the events that transpired between 2022 and 2023 was fired by the CIA 1 day after meeting with the DIG. When the DIG ceased operations, the CIA also took back 40 boxes of JFK files and MKUltra files being processed for declassification by DNI Gabbard.
So if the whistleblower's right, this wasn't just bureaucratic foot-dragging, it was the intel machine protecting itself. Now NewClip lays out the case that the lab leak story was buried on purpose, and Fauci's role was front and center.
Fox News alert, Anthony Fauci's in big trouble. The little man in a lab coat got a lot wrong and never fessed up to any of it. 2 weeks to slow the spread, wear a mask, and whatever you do, don't say lab leak. Well, today, a CIA whistleblower told the Senate the deep state is still covering up where COVID came from, and Fauci helped them do it.
Intelligence community leaders and senior analysts downplayed the possibility that the COVID pandemic originated as a result of a lab incident. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional.
But the cover-up didn't start in 2020. It started in 2015 when Fauci had his own scientists change the rules so he could keep funding gain-of-function research, the kind that was happening in Wuhan. Fast forward 4 years, October 2019, the CDC, Johnson & Johnson, and the former number 2 at the CIA teamed up with Bill Gates' foundation and the World Economic Forum to war game a fake coronavirus pandemic.
And of course, when we reported on all that at the time, we were heavily censored, videos were deleted, and it was absolute censorship. So that ties the cover-up directly to Fauci and the intelligence apparatus. Next, Rand Paul brings it into black and white, saying Fauci used deep connections inside the intel community to steer away from the Wuhan lab. He posted this. Today, we have further proof that Fauci had deep connections to the intel agencies when COVID came out. He leveraged those connections to steer the intelligence community away from the idea that the lab leak took place at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We now know the lab leak is likely what occurred. And he posts to this Washington Examiner article. And I remember specifically when we reported about how they had taken the gain-of-function research from Fort Detrick and moved it to Wuhan. We were called conspiracy theorists, we were smeared, and our videos were deleted from the internet. And now, of course, it's all true. So Paul says Fauci didn't just get it wrong, he worked the system to shape the connection. Now he turns to the bigger fight, public oversight, declassification, why the American people still have not seen the full record. Okay, not sure where the audio is on that. But his point is simple. Closed-door testimony protects the swamp. Public testimony exposes it next to the hearing room, backs it up with a whistleblower. The CIA analyst reached a lab leak conclusion. Those findings were buried or withheld. Here's more from Senator Rand Paul.
Concur, and I would also like to respond to the CIA spokesman. They say that we have already obtained closed-door testimony. Well, closed-door testimony doesn't provide oversight. Public testimony provides oversight. We have asked them for public testimony and for oversight. We would love to have the scientists, the 6 or 7 scientists that were commissioned to look at this, we'd love to see their report. Why would we not be allowed to see their report? I can't even read that in private. But that should be public, the science. If there are sources and methods, mark them out, redact them. But we should be able to see that. But for them to have the gall to say, oh, we allowed the witness to testify in private and that should be enough. No, you were told by Congress unanimously to declassify this material and you send us 5 pages. Imagine how many, you mentioned maybe 2,000 pages. DOE has a report. That's got to be 40 or 50 pages, but the base documents for DOE's report are probably run into the hundreds of pages just for that one report. And they did a great analysis of this, but still most of that is not available to the public. Why?
So the pattern that we just heard, one story public, another inside government, keeps getting harder to ignore. Next, declassification OD9 material puts real documents on the screen detailing U.S.-backed labs in Ukraine and the pathogens they handle. Is this what they had planned for us? Newly declassified, America built and funded over 40 labs in Ukraine, store dangerous Soviet-era pathogens in complete secret. States the U.S. built and supported more than 40 labs across Ukraine, then held especially dangerous pathogens as anthrax, Ebola, Marburg plague, Lassa, MERS, SARS, tularemia, tuberculosis, and others. U.S. scientists trained Ukrainian staff to work with these high-risk pathogens. Many labs operated at high biosafety levels, which were used for the most dangerous diseases. A map in the document shows lab locations across Ukraine. The report gives specific examples of U.S.-funded labs with exact costs, some costing over $3 million each, and names the main U.S. contractor Black & Veatch, along with Ukrainian partners. Several labs received official permits to work with especially dangerous pathogen. And this document confirms the U.S. directly built and paid for dozens of labs in Ukraine, storing some of the world's most dangerous pathogens with millions of taxpayer dollars in complete secrecy. So some of the documents you can see now being released and approved. So there's even more. The ODNI slides are why the story is getting bigger by the day. Not just what happened, but what was hidden. Meanwhile, the personal fight at the top of the intel world is heating up with Fox reporting Trump is nominating Jay Clayton for DNI after some pushback on Capitol Hill.
Mark Meredith has got the breaking news from the White House. Clayton, quite a well-known fellow.
Absolutely, especially around here in Washington, John. Of course, the headline here is that the president felt the pressure that was coming from Capitol Hill, including from a number of Republicans that were not happy to see Bill Pulte in the Director of National Intelligence position. He was named as acting DNI. What this does is set up the nomination for, as you mentioned, Jay Clayton, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District in New York. He was also the chairman of the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, during the president's first term. I think it was 2017 to 20. He is well known around Washington, obviously in the legal circles. Also served, I believe, on the board of American Express. The question, of course, here is, will this propel Congress to move quickly on this nomination? Tulsi Gabbard, who had been confirmed for this job, obviously was going to be replaced, and she had announced that she would be leaving, the president going in a different direction, and she was expected to leave by the end of this month. Axios came out with a report today which said that Pulte had called her and said, nope, you're done this week. It's time to get moving. And it's unclear whether or not that leaking may have had any impact on the president's decision. But perhaps that's the biggest headline today, was that there was a number of congressional Republicans, in addition to Democrats, who blocked an extension, a short-term extension of a warrantless surveillance act that needed to be approved by Congress because there was so much anger over Pulte's nomination for DNI. So it's unclear right now, is he going to stay as acting DNI as this nomination works through? It's an important post. It's been around for decades. The question, of course, here is, what will this do to change any of the feelings up on the Hill? I just checked with our Capitol Hill team. A lot of these lawmakers, they're already heading to the airport. It's hotter than hell out here, John. They're already skipping town for the weekend. So any movement would likely have to come after this weekend.
So this is the real turning point. See, the Trump administration is not simply revisiting an old controversy. It's building an evidentiary record. Gabbard's release on foreign biolabs, gain-of-function concerns, and hidden funding streams widens the frame from one lab in Wuhan to a global system of dangerous research with weak visibility and weak accountability. Add in whistleblower claims that Congress was not fully informed, and investigators themselves were obstructed, and the center of gravity changes fast. The battle's no longer which theory do you like. The battle is, what did officials know, what did they hide, and why? And that is where institutions lose credibility, and that's exactly why declassification matters. Documents can outlast narratives, and records can expose people who thought they would never be challenged. So let's be clear about what we're watching. President Trump's team is taking one of the most heavily managed stories out of the last decade and forcing it into the realm of records, oversight, and accountability. And that's a win for truth, a win for transparency, and a win for every American who is smeared for asking obvious questions. Tulsi Gabbard's document release matters because they open a door to a larger reckoning over biolabs, pathogen research, gain-of-function funding, and the people who decided what you were allowed to know. If more files are coming in the days ahead, this story could move from suspicion to proof very quickly. And if it happens, a whole lot of the old gatekeepers are going to be exposed. So share this video, subscribe to Next News, and drop your comment below. Yes or no, do you believe the full COVID origin record should be declassified for the American people immediately? Let's have a conversation, because it's about time. It's about time you text raw feed to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman, going direct to you to bring you the truth and news that you depend on. And we're celebrating America 250 here at Next News. Are you? Why don't you go ahead and check out the merch shelf below this video, or just visit shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Okay, the news is moving fast today. I have to catch a flight to D.C. very soon, so I will be landing in D.C. late tonight, and I will be hitting the White House grounds tomorrow. So make sure you take a look for all of our posts with respect to that. The latest from the White House, checking out the Washington, D.C., the beautification, the reflecting pool, something I really want to see. And we do have some news on the reflecting pool just in a few more segments. Before we get to that, we need to talk about what is going on with Hunter Biden. Can you believe this? Hunter Biden, he just joined X, and he's posting videos, speaking very openly now, going on podcasts, and, well, he's admitting everything now. Everything. And even a potential presidential run. Buckle up, folks. Buckle up. So I'm going to go ahead, Brian. I'm going to get this last one. What did you have this? The White House briefing is dropping at 2:30? So that dropped at 2:30? Okay, so Tulsi's story, we're going to drop that at, let's see here. We'll send that out today at 5 o'clock. No, we'll do 6 o'clock. Okay. So 6 o'clock, and then this story with Hunter Biden will drop at 7 p.m. You guys are getting to see it first, though. You're watching us live, so you get to see it as it happens. And then the Iran story will drop at 8 tonight. Okay, so let's get that scheduled as well. Okay. All right. I'm ready, Brian. Hunter Biden suddenly talking like a man who knows the family secrets, knows the party lies, and frankly does not care who gets burned on the way down. What started as a joking 2028 riff with Gavin Newsom is turning into something much bigger, a public unraveling inside the former Biden world. Now Jill Biden is being pressed on what she knew when she knew it and why the country wasn't told the truth when Joe Biden was still in office. And here's the part the Democrats should fear the most. The people rewriting the Biden era are the people who lived inside it. See, it's not really about whether Hunter Biden runs for anything. It's not even mainly about Gavin Newsom, although his orbit keeps showing up around these comments for a reason. The real danger for Democrats is that control of the Biden story is slipping away from party handlers and the legacy media gatekeepers. For years, Americans were told not to believe what they could plainly see. When Joe Biden was president, concerns about his condition were waved away, critics were smeared, and the press covered for the machine. Now the same former insiders are contradicting each other in public. Hunter says Democrats hid that his father lost a step. Jill Biden is out denying pension, denying awareness, and denying what the country watched with its own eyes. Kamala World is telling a very different story, and that is the crisis, not messaging, it's credibility. And once credibility cracks, everything the former Biden administration claimed about its competence, honesty, and decision-making comes under the microscope. And speaking of people waking up late to what should have been obvious, let me tell you about an opportunity many Americans still have time to act on. And if you can go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. Silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the massive industrial build-out driving America's economy. And that's why I want you to check out Noble Gold Investments. Go to nextnewsgold.com right now to learn more. And depending on your qualifying purchase, you could receive a free 1/10 ounce gold coin. Don't wait while everyone else catches on. Now, back to the story that Democrats can no longer contain. See, here's what makes this even more than an internet theater. Hunter Biden is no longer just a scandal attachment to the old machine. He's starting to sound like an insider witness against it. He posted that no Democrat has won the White House this century without a Biden on the ticket. And they joked about joining Gavin Newsom as VP, fine. But mixed into the clown show was a much more revealing confession. He said Democrats covered up that his father lost a step, and that's not random banter. That's an admission with consequences. Jesse Waters covering it as well. Hunter Biden declaring war on the Democrat establishment. Listen to this.
Primary season's picking up, and Democrats just found their dream ticket.
I'm joined today by presidential candidate Hunter Biden.
They gave me a stage. I'm going to use it. I got a lot to say.
Knee pads in the tweaker 2028. Please let it be so. Hunter fantasizes about a lot of things, trust me. But one thing he wants badly, to stick it to the Democrats who cooed his daddy. He could pull off the greatest comeback since the Knicks. Settle scores in D.C., burn it all down, and with Newsom by his side, well...
There is this very powerful group of people, and they all go to the same dinner parties, and they are all part of the same financial ecosystem that continues to fill their pockets in the Democratic Party, which I think is the one thing that makes it very, very, very difficult for the Democratic Party to ever actually achieve the real systemic change that we need in order to rehabilitate that brand. We need a New Deal. We need somebody to come and break it.
Hunter's red hot. He spent years off the political grid, like he was in the witness protection program. But now that he's got a pardon in his pocket and Pops is out of office, he's moving his mouth like a machine gun. He's owning the family's biggest skeleton, Sleepy's brain.
It wasn't like it was a surprise that they elected someone who was 78 years old. It was not like a surprise that people, as they get old, particularly at that age, they literally lose a step. Like my dad lost a step. That does not mean per se that there is a cognitive decline. But instead of embracing it, I think that they tried to kind of obfuscate it. And the one thing Dad could never afford, in my opinion, was to not always embrace his greatest strength, which was his authenticity.
Confession. I'm captivated. Hunter's interesting. He's got something to say. It's fresh. Because he doesn't give a... Unlike most of these tentative Democrats that pussyfoot around the truth, he's got Trump energy. And remember, Trump ravaged both parties, Republicans and Democrats. Hunter's embracing that same kind of blind violence. It's just what America needs.
Is he more qualified than me? I went to Yale Law School. I was a vice president of a major bank. I worked in the Clinton administration. I started my own business. I started my own law firm. I worked for Boyce, Schiller, Flexner. I taught at Georgetown University in the master's program at the School of Foreign Service. I was a chairman of the board of World Food Program, U.S. I was a vice chairman of Amtrak. I served on 14 boards. And Jared Kushner did what?
Okay, so Hunter said the quiet part out loud. Biden lost a step. Democrats worked overtime to cover it up. Now Trump weighs in on Hunter's 2028 chatter. Reminds the press where's Hunter caught fire in the first place. Peter Doocy on Hunter Biden. Trump to Peter Doocy on Hunter Biden 2028. His past is not the greatest. Doocy asked Trump how Hunter Biden would fare in 2028. Listen.
Hunter Biden. He's on social media now, and he has suggested, maybe joking, I don't know, that he could run for president in 2028. How would he do, Hunter Biden, in a 2028 Democratic primary?
Well, you would think that, past has something to do with winning an election, and I would say his past is not the greatest. Where's Hunter? Remember my Where's Hunter? It became the #1 shirt anywhere in the world for about 3 weeks. I'm not going to say that. I'm sure, hey, if the guy from Maine can do well, I guess Hunter could do well too. If the guy from Maine is a basket case, and I would say worse than him is the one from Texas. That looks like Alfred E. Newman. I would say that if he can do well, maybe Hunter can do well. I'm not sure. It would be pretty close. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even believe this conversation is being had. So Trump's take was simple. Hunter's record is baggage Democrats can't hide, but Hunter's still playing along, joking with Newsom. He'd jump on a 2028 ticket.
I'm joined today by presidential candidate Hunter Biden, 2028. Come on, Hunter.
No.
You got more buzz out there than you got the president of the United States, Donald Trump, talking about your candidacy for president of the United States.
I had to give you a break for just one day at least. Look, here's the deal. I'll run, but only as your VP, because the truth of the matter is the vice president's residence is a lot cooler. It's a lot easier job too.
Wow. So after the VP cracked Newsom, the story spreads fast. Next up, straight headline locks it in. Hunter says he'd run with Gavin, but only as vice president. You just heard it per TMZ. Which started as a joke, is already being treated like a real Democrat trial balloon. The reaction online is savage, with critics dragging Hunter's drug pass right to the front of the story. Hunter Biden smoking crack in the 21st century. Oh my goodness. You gotta love the AI memes, but the backlash gets even uglier as another post says Hunter would fit right in with the political class. This story turns from Hunter's mess to the Biden family's bigger lie. Bro smokes crack, sleeps with underage prostitutes, possesses CP, so he'd fit right in with the rest of our politicians, right? So after the shots at Hunter's record were shifting to Jill Biden, the cover-up around Joe on The View, she is pressed on Kamala's account and forced to answer what the family knew.
Do you think that there's a chance you had a blind spot to it as the person closest to him and to his spouse who just loves him so much?
The Jill Biden book tour is here, and of course Jill Biden, who is apparently a doctor, although not that kind of doctor, and was also never able to diagnose her husband with anything. She's making the rounds. Here she is. Can we offer the warning? Do we have the warning? We can put in the warning. We will put in a warning because we are about to show you a clip from The View.
Her book, she alludes to a much more fractured relationship between the Bidens and the Emhoffs. She writes that your family asked if she and Doug were loyal to your family. And she wrote that her husband, Doug, said, they hide you away for 4 years, give you impossible bleep jobs, don't correct the record when those tasks are mischaracterized, never fight back when you're attacked, never praise your accomplishments. And then, he added, and still, they have to ask if we're loyal. Yeah. How do you respond to that?
I never saw that. I never felt that way with Kamala and Doug. I thought we were a great team. Joe. You look
shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. We were a team, and that July 4th that we were together, it was like we were saying to America, hey, we are the team. You know, it is Joe and Kamala. We are together. And so I feel, Joe chose her. And for Doug to feel that way, I love. When you read in my book, I talk about Doug. I love that he went into teaching. We talk about it all the time. We travel together. We had so many laughs together, and so that kind of surprises me.
I have to tell you guys, I'm loving this book tour because it's.
So she said she never saw it, but even that defense falls apart under its own weight. And then Hunter himself piles on with one more ego trip, claiming no president wins the White House without a Biden on the ticket. Here's the actual post. No Democrat has won the White House this century without a Biden on the ticket. So this is the point where the real story snaps into focus. You see, the post-Biden narrative is no longer being written only by party leadership, friendly anchors, and former staffers trying to protect their reputations. It's now being fought over by family members, allies, rivals, and people who were inside the room. Hunter's attacking the Democrat money machine. Jill is denying what even her own book tour can't hide. Kamala World has its own grievances. Newsom appears to be hovering near the wreckage, looking onward to 2028. And President Trump, as usual, cuts through the nonsense with one clean observation. Hunter's past is not the greatest. Exactly. And Democrats, they're not dealing with one embarrassing headline. They're dealing with a credibility collapse tied to the entire Biden era. So that's why this matters. See, the battle here is not over a fantasy Hunter Biden campaign. The battle is over who gets to define what the Biden presidency actually was and whether the American people were deliberately misled while Joe Biden was still commander-in-chief. The Biden administration and its media allies spent years demanding trust. Now the people closest to that operation are shredding each other in public, exposing rival agendas, bruised egos, and contradictions they can no longer hide. Meanwhile, President Trump's in the White House, delivering the kind of clarity, strength, and accountability this country was denied for 4 long years. So I want to hear from you. Do you believe the Biden family and Democrat insiders knowingly hid the truth from the American people? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this report everywhere. And if you want more America First coverage the corporate press will never give you, subscribe and turn on your notifications right now. But most importantly, text the 2 words you see on your screen right there, raw feed, to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman, going direct to you, sending you the notifications direct from the Next News Network to your phone every single night. Let's celebrate more wins, shall we? America 250 is upon us. Go ahead and take a look at the merch shelf below this video, or simply go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Yeah, that was not on my bingo card today. Newsom Crackhead 2028. And moving right along, we have more news on Iran. We're going to talk again about the UFO files that were just presented today, the 3rd tranche. Also, the threat on the National Mall as President Trump is beautifying our great nation again, and the latest on the war against ICE and what the president is doing about it. So we've got more news we're going to go ahead and jump into as soon as I get the green light from Brian. Okay, we're going to go ahead and jump into that right now. Something just changed in President Trump's Iran strategy, and the media is still pretending this is just another maybe, another framework, another diplomatic rumor. Well, it's not. Listen to the language coming out of the Trump administration right now. Not hopeful, not tentative, not exploratory, confident, forceful, final. President Trump is talking like the hard part is over, and Tehran knows it. Vice President J.D. Vance is swatting down fake leaks. Markets are already reacting. Oil is dropping, and Iran's public denials may actually prove the White House is winning. So here's the real question tonight. Are we watching negotiations, or are we watching the aftermath of Trump already breaking Iran's position? Now, this matters, because the real story is not whether a signing ceremony happens in Geneva on Sunday or next week. The real story is that the Trump administration now appears to believe the central dispute has already been resolved. And that's the difference. For months, the language around Iran was all about talks, progress, possibilities, and vague movement. Now President Trump is saying flat out that Iran wants the deal more than he does. He's saying they've agreed that they will not have a nuclear weapon. That's not trial balloon language. That is victory language. And take a look at the surrounding signals. The stock market jumped. Oil began falling. That's not driven by cable news chatter. Markets react to probabilities, to risk coming off the table, to shipping lanes reopening, to sanctions framework becoming predictable. In other words, serious people with serious money are beginning to price in the possibility that Trump's peace through strength formula is working exactly as promised. In the leak fight, that may be the biggest tell of all. Governments do not rage about leaks and terms when talks are dead. They rage when the deal is close and the remaining battle is about optics, compliance, and who gets credit. And when we're talking about solutions that work in the real world instead of media spin, let me tell you about something that got my attention for the very same reason. You've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about people close to them, going through serious health struggles, and then seeing dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they work at the cellular level. Gibson says that plainly the stuff works. That hit home for me. In my own life, I watched something similar with my wife. who dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for far too long. That's why I looked into red light therapy and the work that Jonathan Otto is highlighting. If you want to learn more, you can simply check out the interviews that I've done with Jonathan on the channel or go to myredlight.com. It's one of those tools that people are discovering because it supports the body naturally. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Check it out for yourself. Now back to the other story the media is struggling to process. President Trump is talking like America already won the leverage battle. And here's the part they really don't want to admit. The White House is no longer speaking like it's bargaining for the main objective. It's speaking like the objective has been secured, and the only thing left is enforcement. President Trump says Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. J.D. Vance says there's no cash giveaway and no free ride. Iran's own foreign minister says it has never been closer. So when Tehran denies this or leaks around it, ask yourself why. That's not the behavior of a side in control. That's the behavior of a regime scrambling to save face before the paperwork catches up. So President Trump's historic Iran deal could be signed as early as Sunday in Geneva, according to reports, but Iran is publicly denying it. And President Trump's now demanding they get their act together after leaking lies to the fake news.
Signing ceremony could come as early as Sunday in Geneva, but Iranian state media is reporting that those reports of that signing ceremony are false, so we're just going to have to wait and see. Jackie?
Seems like we've heard this before. We'll see if it's different this time. Max Gordon, thank you.
And we'll have to wait and see, but the reports say Sunday is in Geneva. Tehran already leaking denials and playing games now. Watch Trump cut through the noise himself and say the settlement is essentially locked. Markets and oil reacting fast. Trump Daily Post says that Trump announced the Iran war is settled. Signing could happen in Europe in the next few days. Stock market jumped 1,000 points. Oil prices already dropping. Peace through strength is working. Listen to this from the Oval Office.
Today, I know you'll never be satisfied, but that's okay. That doesn't bother me at all. We just made a great settlement of the war with Iran, and we're going to be subject to finalization of documents. We should get done over the next few days. Probably have a signing maybe in Europe, and it's a great thing. Stock market's up 1,000 points. That means they like the deal. See, that means they like the market goes down. That means they don't like the deal. But it's been up. Oil's dropped. Oil will start coming down to, I think, even lower than it was before. I said I was in Iowa. It was $1.85 a gallon.
So Trump says the paperwork's heading towards his signing in Europe. The market clearly likes what he hears next. He gets even more direct saying Iran got hit hard and now wants the deal more than he does.
Why are you so convinced that this time is different?
Because they've taken a pounding. They've taken a pounding like very few people could take, and they want to make the deal a lot more than I do. And we could have had it done the other way, I guess, but it would have taken longer. They got hit very hard recently, as you know, and I don't like to have to do things that way, but I felt it was necessary. It's a great deal for the United States and for the Middle East, and I think ultimately great for Iran because they'll be able to build up their country and other country. I really believe it's a regime change because I find these people to be much more rational than the people that are no longer with us. We knocked out the first team of leadership, the second team of leadership. There's a different group, there's a different level, and I think it's frankly a smarter level, and it's a level that has reason. And they've all approved the deal. Everybody's approved the deal. Now we'll get it finished up, and hopefully that'll be done. We will not have Iran having a nuclear weapon, which is very important to these people behind me. We can talk about fishing. There won't be anybody to fish. The fish will still be around against it. Probably going to be affected too. We're not going to let it happen. So Iran will essentially, most important paragraph to me, Iran will in no way, shape, or form have a nuclear weapon or purchase a nuclear weapon.
So you heard Trump lay out the leverage. Iran took a pounding, and that changed the math. The next clip he zeroes in on the core demand: no nukes, no loopholes.
How confident are you that there will be a signing this weekend? Because you have come close to sealing a deal, but at the last minute it has fallen apart. And
It'll be soon. Maybe this weekend.
And has the Supreme Leader approved this deal, sir?
I understand the answer is yes.
And when this deal is signed, is the United States going to immediately lift the blockade?
Yes, that's part of the deal.
And
you'll have oil prices dropping like a rock.
And sir, have you actually secured an agreement on the discussions about the nuclear material and the nuclear negotiations?
Yes, conceptually on that, and nobody's getting close to it because it's buried under a mountain, basically. There's B-2 bombers in
But has Iran committed to not pursuing a nuclear weapon, or will there be more negotiations on that down the
line? They will not have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that. There will be no, which is the whole reason, which is a big part of the reason.
Is that going to be in your agreement, sir?
They will not only not have, they will not purchase, develop in any way, shape, or form a nuclear weapon. They will not have a nuclear weapon.
So that's the red line. Iran is not going to nuclear weapon. Now Trump explains why Tehran came to the table at all, revealing the quiet military pressure that hit their ships right after night.
We've been taking out ships, big ships, quietly at night. You guys didn't know that. Pretty cool, right? As a captain, I used to know more about ships than I do. It's pretty cool. They turned off the lights. We bombed their radar and everything, so they couldn't see what was going on. And we took out some nights 25 ships, some nights 15. The last 4 or 5 nights we did 25, 22, 21, 26, 18, and 14. Who else would remember those numbers? Nobody.
So it wasn't talk alone. Trump saying force backed every word right down to the ship counts. Next comes J.D. Vance calling out the fake reporting and making clear Iran gets nothing unless it complies. He says, I've seen a lot of fake information about a potential deal to reopen the Strait and end Iran's nuclear program. First, the Iranians are not receiving any cash. No funds are being released for simply signing a deal or attending a meeting. The deal structured to ensure that the U.S. and its allies' concerns are prioritized and that if the Islamic Republic of Iran meets its obligations, then economic benefits will flow to them in the entire region. This deal has the potential to remake the region and lead to lasting peace. He says, I've noticed a couple bizarre things in the reporting over the last few hours. First, people who rightly said Trump was a historic president a month ago, now criticizing the deal based on unconfirmed media reports. Second, people who say you can't trust a word said by the IRGC, who apparently believe anonymously sourced social media posts. The president is going to get us a good outcome one way or another. So he's blowing up the media spin. No cash up front, no sweetheart giveaway. America first is the structure. Now reporting tightens with both Vance and Iran's foreign minister saying an agreement is now very close. Vance and the Iran foreign minister both confirm a deal is close.
Minister Saeed Arghachi, who says the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding has never been closer pending its finalization. The media should refrain from entering speculation about its content in line with our responsible and transparent approach. All details will be shared with the public in due course. And of course, Sarah, that's the key to this, is if there's a deal pending, what is in this deal and what does that mean for global oil?
So, what does it mean? It means that Trump may have already done what the foreign policy establishment said could not be done. Force Iran to accepting core restrictions from a position of American strength, not American apology. That's why the administration sounds different. Trump's not begging for a photo op. He's talking like the strategic objective has been met. No nuclear weapon, maritime pressure broken, economic benefits only if Iran actually complies. Remember why Tehran is at this point. Trump made clear they got hit hard. He referenced the pounding they took, the military pressure brought to bear, even describing operations that took out ships at night after radar was blinded. That's not weakness, that's leverage. This is peace through strength in its purest form, and the world can now see it. So don't get distracted by the regime's public denials, usual fake news noise, or the Sunday signing obsession. The deeper story is staring us right in the face. President Trump and his team are acting like the main battle is over. The fight is now about verification, implementation, and narrative control. Iran wants to look defiant. Trump wants America to understand the truth. Strength got results. And if this holds, it'll be another America First victory delivered the way Trump always said it should be delivered. Peace through unmistakable power. No blank checks, no surrender, no naive globalist fantasy, just results. If you agree President Trump has Iran on the ropes and the media is once again behind the curve, share this report everywhere. Comment below and let us know. Do you believe Iran has already accepted Trump's terms? Yes or no? If you want more coverage, the corporate press will never give you straight. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications right now. But most importantly, we're cutting out the middleman. Text the words raw feed 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots have already done so. We saw your messages. We saw your comments. You guys never find out when our videos drop. You can't find us on YouTube, so that's why we set this up, so that you are in the loop no matter what. And let's celebrate more wins, shall we? America 250 is right around the corner. Check out the merch shelf below this video or shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. All right. So Iran is on the ropes, and the UFO files are now making new headlines today. We got some remarkable video we're going to show you that has just come out of the Department of War from those drops, as well as, remember David Grush? Remember we told you he was going to be testifying on, or not testifying, but holding a press conference on the Hill? Well, we got some footage from that as well that you do not want to miss. Some revelations that will put your jaw on the floor. So I'm ready to go, Brian. If you are, okay, let's go ahead and make that happen. Tonight, waiting for my timer. Okay. Right now, the UFO story just crossed a line the regime media can no longer laugh off. This is not another blurry cell phone clip, not another late-night podcast confession, and not another anonymous source begging you to just trust the process. The U.S. government has now released a third batch of declassified UFO files, and that's the real bombshell. Read that again. A third batch. That means this is no longer a one-off dump. It looks more like a continuing release process, and once disclosure moves from rumor to records, the entire argument changes. So the question now is simple. What exactly are they preparing the American people to see? And I'll tell you why this matters, because for decades, the public was told to ignore the subject, mock the subject, or pretend only cranks ask questions. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, agencies kept files, tracked incidents, and circulated internal warnings. One newly highlighted 1948 Navy memorandum marked confidential says the director of intelligence for the U.S. Air Force informed the Navy that a cycle of reappearance of flying discs was becoming apparent and that a new interval was imminent. And that's not internet gossip, that is the paper trail of the federal government itself. And now, under the Trump administration's broader push towards transparency and declassification, Americans are seeing more records come into daylight. And that's the bigger story. Not whether every case proves aliens, not whether every witness is right. The story is that official releases are beginning to overtake whistleblowers as the engine of disclosure. The same permanent bureaucracy that spent years hiding records is now being forced to cough them up piece by piece, and the old gatekeepers are losing control of the narrative. And while we're talking about bureaucracies that thrive on confusion, there's another one that's hitting millions of American families right in the wallet. So pay attention, because if you or your family, someone in your family's on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never look at it again. That's the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. See, chapter simple by design, one call, one advisor, real help. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your priorities, then help you compare plans that actually fit. Some seniors could save as much as $1,100 a year. So call Chapter at the number on your screen, 910-728-4109, and get answers from someone who works for you and not the system. Now back to a story where Americans are once again being asked to question what the bureaucracy has been hiding. See, here's a twist that should have Washington sweating. The newest files are not just old Cold War papers. They include modern incidents, modern witnesses, and modern agency handling. One newly released FBI Link 2025 case from the Northeast describes two brilliant red orbs, one with a white plasma-like center moving silently in formation before appearing to merge. The witnesses were assessed as credible. Another file sees a so-called potato-shaped object seen in 2022 by 5 U.S. Army intelligence officers in Colorado Springs. So this is not ancient folklore gathering dust in a basement archive. This is a live file system with fresh entries, and that changes the conversation entirely. The Department of War making it official, publishing their third release of unidentified anomalous phenomenon files. So pursuant to the third release, the Director of Intelligence of the U.S. Air Force has informed the Navy that a cycle of reappearing flying discs is becoming apparent, and that the beginning of a new interval is imminent. This is the 1948 document that has now been released. It's a memorandum from the Commandant of the 5th Naval. Let me just go ahead and make it bigger for you. The 1948 document is a memorandum from the Commandant of the 5th Naval District, and it cites a memorandum related to flying discs from the Chief of Naval Operations. The memorandum requests that Naval Solutions report incident to the nearest Air Force Command and the Naval District Intelligence Office. So here's the actual document itself, now newly declassified. Informed the Navy a cycle of reappearance of flying discs is becoming apparent. The beginning of a new interval is imminent. So they have been tracking this for quite a long time. So it wasn't just fringe, it was in classified military paperwork. Next, whistleblower David Grush says the cover-up went way beyond paperwork, even kept presidents and Congress in the dark. Here's David Grush when he gave his press conference on Capitol Hill.
Afternoon. I'm here today because my leadership on the disclosure issue is part of my continued service to the nation. I took an oath as an Air Force officer swearing allegiance to the principles and the framework of the U.S. Constitution. I took that oath seriously then, and I take that oath seriously now. And if this is one of my final duties of public service, I want it to be this: helping Congress and the President restore lawful accountability over activities and spending that should never been placed beyond constitutional oversights, and to be transparent with the American people. There are myriad issues across multiple cultural, religious, and institutional spectrums. The topics here that we're discussing today go beyond life in the universe. There are serious homeland security and airspace safety issues. There are relevant counterintelligence and technology protection issues that must be taken into consideration. For decades, unknown objects have freely operated in restricted airspace in large metropolitan areas and critical infrastructure, and the agencies responsible for securing the homeland cannot adequately defend against it. This is a serious national security issue. In my official duties, I was exposed to human and signals intelligence information concerning foreign adversary, UAP crash retrieval, exploitation study efforts, adversary views on U.S. legacy program reverse engineering efforts, and U.S.-held audiovisual information related to crash retrieval matters, such as the recovered vehicles and the associated biological material. One must always be concerned about adversarial disinformation when you're getting foreign intelligence, but I was able to cross-verify this information internally to back up the foreign government assertions. Many of the president's team has been kept in the dark by high-ego, politically appointed actors, both because of incompetence and malicious intent has subverted the president's order on this issue. Furthermore, some of this foreign intelligence has not been provided to Congress despite lawful requests to the Defense Intelligence Agency last summer, and also having formally been published across the IC and analyzed by such analytical centers such as NASIC. These records belong under congressional oversight, and I believe DIA should stop obstructing Chairman Luna's task force and provide those documents to Congress and enter it through mandatory classification review so the American public can see some of the foreign intelligence I had access to.
So we laid out the obstruction piece. Now gets more specific, saying the government is aware of several dozen crash retrieval cases tied to non-human biologics. Buckle up.
Mr. President, Scott Mercer from the Serious Planet. I have a question. Do you have a sense of how many cases the government might be aware of that involve non-human biologics?
Quite a few, several dozen. So that's an ongoing list. So I can't give you an exact number because I don't even have full access to that information.
General rough estimate?
Several dozen.
Several dozen. The number alone blows up years of media mockery. Next, he says it doesn't stop at a category. Claims the government knows multiple types of non-human intelligence.
I certainly don't have the compendium. It's a continuum from corporeal bipedal type life to what I would consider like sentient plasma life, but there are several that the U.S. government is aware of. Okay.
During the course of your investigation, it's been surfaced to the public that there's been a program by the Immaculate Constellation. During the course of your investigation, did you recognize that the infrastructure supports this program for exfiltration of data from federal systems which is?
Yeah, I can't comment on the content of that program. I've discussed on my interview in Judicial Watch. That was a National Security Council program, and the secrecy started in 1954 through an Eisenhower executive order that created that infrastructure.
So from physical beings, what he calls plasmoid life, claims keep getting bigger now. Lou Elizondo weighs in saying some orb encounters may involve intelligent plasma beings that government buried from the public.
If there is life off of this planet, that is the biggest headline of our lifetime. And that phrase that he just used, plasmoid, whatever, what is he talking about, Lou?
Yeah, he's referring to what some have speculated regarding orbs that have been viewed really since the 1940s during the Foo Fighter incidents and then later over New Mexico skies, over controlled military airspace. And it seems that, at least in some cases, some of these orbs seem to have some sort of intelligence connected with them. And so rather than just being like, let's say, a probe or a drone, these things have been reported to almost behave and react in some cases as if there was ascribed to it some sort of I can say, but life form. I was more nuts and bolts guy when I was in the program. My focus was more on actual physical craft.
So after Russian Elizondo connected dots, here comes the document dump itself. The third release drops more than 70 files, images, and orb videos. The regime media spent years waving away. U.S. government drops third batch, 70 new documents and orbs. And here's one of the videos that they state here. This was October of 2024 in northeastern United States. An eyewitness observed a light source below the horizon hovering above a pond. The luminous object resembled a plasma-like sphere, intermittently changing shape and luminosity. The video was captured by a private citizen on an iPhone, subsequently analyzed and authenticated by the U.S. government. So you can see this orb, plasma-like sphere, floating. That's directly from the White House publishing that. Next, here's footage TMZ highlighted from the Pentagon release. New video the public was never supposed to see this clearly. Stunning UFO-related video released by the Pentagon. Look at that. This orb just showing up. Just pulsing in the sky, turning into a circle. Fading in and out. Another image, video actually, released by the Pentagon here. Multiple orbs emitting from it. Wow. It's almost like a mothership releasing. Wow. And then it disappears. Like it showed up and then released the entities. So the clip's raising the question, but the paper gives specifics. Up next, FBI case summary from 2025 describing a red orb with a white plasma center seen by two witnesses in the Northeast. UFO files tranche 3, northeastern orb sighting. July 2025, approximately 2100 local time in the northeastern U.S. Eyewitness observed an intense bright light in their backyard as they parked their car upon returning from work. Light hovering approximately 25 feet off the ground below a tree line to the center of the backyard, estimated distance of 90 feet. Eyewitness exited the vehicle briefly before retrieving their phone to record the event. The spouse of the eyewitness came outside to assess the situation, also witnessing what they described as a brilliant red sphere about a meter in diameter. The center of the red sphere appeared to be a white plasma sun about the size of a basketball. That's derived from statements provided by the FBI. Okay, here's the video footage now. Now, when I first saw this, my initial impression was that these appear to be like signal flares. But they're moving in what appears to be in tandem, in a coordinated trajectory. And that's what makes this really weird. So the FBI report describes silent movement, tandem flight, orbs appearing to merge next. Another newly released file points to the so-called potato-shaped object, witnessed by five Army intelligence officers. Okay, let's take a look here. Newly released UFO documents released a potato-shaped UAP, witnessed by 5 U.S. Army intelligence officers in Colorado Springs. Object described an FBI UAP D002, hovering or moving anonymously before the trained observers. The files were publicly dropped June 12, 2026. So that is this potato-shaped object. Wow. So I'll tell you what it means. Disclosure is becoming institutionalized. The story has moved through stages: witnesses, military videos, hearings, whistleblowers, and now it's entering the records phase. And that's a completely different battlefield. David Rush can say that he encountered information about crash retrievals, biologics, and presidents being kept in the dark. Lou Elizondo, he can talk about intelligent orb-like plasma phenomena. Those claims are explosive, but the deeper development is that official government releases are now creating a framework where the public can compare claims against files. Once the debate becomes what is in the archive instead of what you believe, the deep state loses one of its favorite weapons: ridicule. That's why this moment's bigger than any single orb video or a whistleblower. So let's keep this simple. See, maybe these files don't answer every question. Maybe they raise 10 more, right? For every one they settle, fine. But the old dismissive game is over. You don't get a third release process, a 1948 memo about flying discs, modern orb incidents deemed credible, Army intelligence sightings, congressional pressure, and public statements from former insiders, and then pretend there's nothing here. There is something here. The only real question is how much the government is already ready to release, and how many people inside the system are now being forced to choose between the Constitution and the cover-up. And that's why this matters to every American who still believes that the government works for the people and not the other way around. If you want more coverage, the corporate media will never give you straight. Hit share, subscribe, drop your answer below. Yes or no? Do you believe the federal government knows far more about UAPs than has admitted publicly? Let's have a conversation and make sure you stay connected with the Next News Network. Text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. We're cutting out the middleman, going direct to you so you never miss a notification again. And also, America 250 is upon us. Celebrate with us. We've got some new gear in the merch shelf below this video, or you can check it out at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. So, UFO Files Drop 3 has now been made public. David Grush in that remarkable press conference on Capitol Hill. We're going to get these published for you guys. We're watching it all happen in real time. Let's go ahead and get these other ones scheduled out for you, Brian. I have to catch a plane. Going to D.C. Going to be at the White House tomorrow. Look forward to the intel drops from the White House. Looking forward to going back and seeing all the amazing things happening in Washington, especially the new reflecting pool. I'm really looking forward to seeing that, which is what our next topic is about. Right now, the real fight in Washington is not over a bill, a vote, or even a headline. It's over who gets to define America in the most symbolic ground in the nation, the National Mall. President Trump's team is restoring beauty, pride, and power to the Capitol ahead of America's 250th birthday. The reflecting pool is gleaming. The White House is preparing for a historic celebration. And right as that happens, the left lashes out in the exact place where America tells its story. This is bigger than grass, bigger than paint, bigger than one ugly message. The question is, who owns the meaning of America now? And I'll tell you why this matters, because the Trump administration is not simply cleaning up Washington, D.C. It's reclaiming the Capitol as a showcase of American greatness. The time-lapse of the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool says it all. Drained, repainted, restored, and refilled. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum put it perfectly. Made the reflecting pool great again. President Trump sharing the beautiful finished images himself with the Washington Monument and the reflecting pool looking polished, calm, and unmistakably patriotic. Even a Democrat in D.C. was forced to admit the new look is better, saying she hated that it actually looked really good. And that's the visual contrast the left can't stand. They prefer the old algae green decline because decline is their comfort zone. Trump is building a Capitol ready for America 250 with civic pride, historic landmarks, and even a White House UFC event that Secretary Rubio says is a gift to the American people. That backdrop is exactly why the attacks are escalating. As we watch this battle over America's future play out in full view, it's also a reminder to think ahead before the crowd catches on. If you could go back in time before and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Well, of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history, and today a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. You see, silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing base that powers modern life. Demand is rising, and smart Americans are paying attention. Now, not later. Noble Gold Investments can help you learn more. Visit nextnewsgold.com, and for a limited time, you could receive a 1/10-ounce gold coin with a qualifying purchase. Now back to the fight over who gets to shape the image of America itself. See, just when the restoration story was becoming impossible to deny, the sabotage started. First, vandals reportedly cut President Trump's face out of signs around D.C. Then came the bigger message, etched onto the National Mall itself. 8647. That's not random. That's not harmless. It appeared right as thousands prepared to descend on the Capitol for celebrations, flyovers, and major public events. In other words, this was a place where it would be seen, where it would spread, and where it would collide directly with Trump's renewal of Washington. President Trump didn't just drain the swamp, he refilled it with clean, beautiful American flag blue water, and this is what I voted for. Bo Loudon posting the images here. Look at that. Beautiful blue water on the right, and that's what it looked like beforehand. So the side-by-side says it all. Trump didn't just clean up the mall, he brought the shine back. Now, watch the full time-lapse as crews drain, repaint, and refill the Lincoln reflecting pool. So here's a time-lapse of the draining of it. The basin repainted. American flag blue. Wow. So they must have had a camera right there on the top of the Washington Monument. That's the only way they can get the shot like that. Absolutely beautiful. I can't wait to be there. Oh, Earth Cam. Is that the Earth Cam shot? All right. Well, I'll be in D.C. to see all of this. And you'll see, you just saw the transformation. Here's the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum with a simple message, make the reflecting pool great again. And he posted this video, another time-lapse from the other angle, looking from the top of the Lincoln Memorial. This is about a minute long. It's wild. You see all the weather patterns, the sun, the activity, the lights. I mean, the fact that they got this done in such a short amount of time is just remarkable. And I think when Obama did it, it took like 2 years for them to do it, and then all the algae returned. It cost like $35 million or something crazy. President Trump getting it done in just a few weeks. Wow. Look at this. This is just so cool to watch. Wow. All right, come on, let's see the filling. Oh, there it is. Wow. How cool. Oh, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Freedom 250, Department of the Interior. So he's putting a stamp on the project as the work comes into focus next. More of those polished views Trump shared himself. This is what President Trump posted. So the postcard shots are exactly what a left can't stand success. Next one, Democrat in D.C. admits on camera, the new reflecting pool looks great and hates to say it.
I thought it was a stupid idea to paint the reflecting pool, but y'all, it looks good. It actually looks really good. Like, it makes the reflection look extraordinarily prominent, and it did not look good. And I hate that.
Oh, wow. Unreal, man. Even critics are being forced to concede the obvious. Now hear from a visitor at the pool who says Lincoln himself would be smiling.
Lincoln looking over that pond right now, and I'm sure he's smiling up in heaven above saying, job well done.
Job well done indeed. So the public reactions. Shifting gears, Rubio explains why the White House UFC event is being pitched as a gift to the American people.
The White House is the people's house. It belongs to the people of the United States. The American 250 celebration belongs to the people of the United States. And there are millions and millions of Americans from all walks of life that are not necessarily attuned to politics or the financial markets or anything else, but they love the sport. And every Saturday, we got a big event once a month. They're tuning in and they're watching and they hosted it. For them to be able to see this event with their White House in the background as part of our celebration as a country in our 250 years, I think is a gift to the American people. That's what Saturday Sunday is about. It's a gift to the American people. They're going to see their White House in their capital on their nation's birthday, celebrating with a historic event. We could have had a band. We have great bands. We could have done a Shakespeare in the Park production. There are a lot of things we could have done with it. But this one, we'll have people watching, probably over, what, 1 billion people all over the world. 1 billion people all over the world will be watching America celebrate its 250th birthday with the White House in the background and some of the best athletes in the world in that octagon. And we're happy to be a part of that. And we're happy to be a part of all the things we're going to be working on together in the years to come.
So he says celebrations for the people, not the DC elite, but while the Capitol's being restored, vandals already targeting pro-Trump signs near the reflecting pool. Vandals cut President Trump's face from signs across DC. Workers at the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool reported the destruction. Interior Department NSP did not respond to requests for details about the investigation. Look at that. Crew took it down. Told me Trump hard hat signs cut up all over DC the same night. They're investigating, apparently. No response. Wow. So while workers are cleaning up the nation's front yard, the anti-Trump crowd is busy tearing things down. Next here, more DC liberals complain they preferred the old algae green look.
I would prefer to keep it like it was. It's an incredibly stupid idea. I'm delighted that it's still reflecting.
I think it's horrible. The color I've seen on the news is disgusting to me, as opposed to how beautiful it was in the past.
Yeah, probably watching MSNBC. They rather defend green scum than admit Trump made it better, and now the ugliness gets worse. A sick 8647 message shows up on the National Mall. Sick plot exposed. Someone traced 8647 into the grass near the World War II memorial. Photographer caught it right before authorities arrived. They're openly threatening Trump's life. Take a look at this.
National Mall. Mark Meredith is live from the White House with the latest. What's the story, Mark? Will, good afternoon. What a day it's been here in Washington. At this hour, it's unclear if this was one person or multiple people who were responsible for vandalizing the National Mall, but it's certainly easy to spot, at least from up high. Take a look at the vantage point. We can see down the National Mall. The numbers 8647 appeared in the green grass not far from the World War II memorial. We don't know how extensive this damage is and whether this is easily repairable, but it's not just the vandalism that's notable. It's the message. 8647 has become a mainstream way to show disgust with President Trump. 86 usually means to axe or kill something, usually used in the restaurant industry, and 47 traditionally references President Trump as he's both the 45th and 47th president. We got a statement from the Department of Interior which says the deranged vandalism on our National Mall will not be tolerated. Any threat against the president is taken very seriously by the department, and our U.S. Park Police will investigate this incident and hold those responsible accountable. Now, the most notable incident of 8647 trend came after FBI Director James Comey posted this on Instagram back in 2025. It's the same message, but made out of seashells. The Justice Department says it considers it a threat on Trump's life. A grand jury in North Carolina indicted Comey over this matter. You may remember a similar case on this exact same post was not successful. But either way, this is getting a lot of attention. What's happening on the...
So the report lays out the threat in plain English, and the motive behind it. Now Fox follows the federal response. Authorities investigate the massive markings. It's become mainstream. 8647, a way for President Trump's critics to show disgust. The Department of Interior says the deranged vandalism on our National Mall will not be tolerated. Here's another shot of it. You can see the 8 right here, and you can see the 6. You can sort of make it out. Not sure exactly how they did it. All they got to do is kill the grass. And then the 4 would be here, and you can clearly see the 7. So they're working to restore it. Federal investigators are on it. The administration calling it deranged vandalism. Fox and Friends digs into how the grass may have been damaged.
Interior is calling this an act of deranged vandalism, with authorities not only trying to figure out who did this, but also what caused the discoloration in the grass. The U.S. Park Service say that markings reading 8647 were discovered around 11:30 yesterday afternoon on the west side of the Washington Monument. The anti-Trump sequence has emerged just as the National Mall is preparing for an influx. Thousands of visitors preparing to come this way for Sunday's UFC match and President Trump's birthday. Also, other recent beautification efforts that have taken place around that direct area. 47 being a reference to President Trump, and 86, that is often noted as slang for getting rid of something. The question is by what means? The numbers were made notable by former FBI Director James Comey, who's currently facing federal charges for a May Instagram post of seashells laying out those numbers. That was last May. He maintains that this was not a call to violence. Now, the White House differs on that, and the response to this most recent vandalism on the mall, they write this: anyone who engages in or endorses political violence or assassination culture must be condemned in the harshest terms possible. So these markings do appear to have been burned in some way. It's very large on the that section of the National Mall. But again, investigators are looking into that. They're actually taking grass samples to find out what exactly caused that discoloration.
So the investigation is taking samples and track whoever did it. The contrast can be clear. We end on American strength overhead with the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds roaring over the White House. Take place on Sunday at the UFC fight. Blue Angels, baby. Gotta love it. How cool. So that's the core of the story. The National Mall is no longer just a tourist stop. It is contested ground in the battle over America's identity. On one side, you have the Trump administration restoring monuments, polishing the Capitol, preparing America 250, and inviting the country to celebrate with confidence. On the other side, you have liberals whining they prefer the old green pool, vandals defacing pro-Trump imagery, and authorities now investigating a giant 8647 threat near some of the most sacred memorial space in the country. The location is everything. This happened beside the symbols of national memory, sacrifice, and unity. The left understands that symbols matter, which is exactly why they target them. They cannot create beauty, so they try to destroy it. So Americans should see this clearly. President Trump's keeping his promise not only to put America first in policy, but to restore visible pride in the nation's capital itself. Clean monuments, a renewed reflecting pool, Blue Angels and Thunderbirds overhead, a White House celebration designed for the people in a country getting ready to mark 250 years of freedom. That's the story. The meltdown from the left proves it's working. They're furious because restoration is powerful. It tells the public that decline is not normal, rot is not inevitable, and American greatness can be revived when real leadership's in charge. So when you see vandalism on the mall, remember, this is not just destruction. It is an attempt to seize symbolic control of America's story. Don't let them do it. Share this report, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and answer the simple yes or no question. Should anyone caught defacing the National Mall face serious federal charges? I want to hear from you. I want to make sure you get the news that you rely on. When the notifications don't arrive, when the algorithm buries us under countless cat videos and CNN spin, we have a solution. Text raw feed to 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots are already getting the notifications when YouTube never sends them. I want to make sure you get them and you stay in the loop. And make sure, since we're celebrating America 250, you get some gear to celebrate with us. Check out the Next News merch shelf below this video or simply go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Okay, more news on the way. We got to talk about what's going on with Trump exposing the real war. ICE, voters, and order. So we started out with our White House report, the bombshell from Tulsi Gabbard's office today as she's preparing to leave that position. The bizarre news about Gavin Newsom and Hunter Biden on a ticket for 2028. The latest out of Iran, the UFO files, and of course the National Mall. So now we're going to go and get you the latest on ICE. Right now, the biggest story is not a protest in Newark, not one Democrat soundbite, and not even one clash over ICE. The real bombshell is that three fights Americans used to see as separate are now colliding into one massive battle: immigration enforcement, election integrity, and public order. President Trump and his allies are making the case that weak borders, dirty voter rolls, and mobs obstructing federal agents all come from the same failed left-wing mindset. The Democrats, they're saying the quiet part out loud. Once you hear their own words, you can't unsee what's happening next. And I'll tell you why this matters, because for years the left tried to compartmentalize every one of these debates. Border security was one lane, voting rules were another. Riots, sanctuary cities, and anti-police activism were treated like unrelated headlines. Not anymore. Under the Trump administration, the argument is being fused into one clear America First message. If you cannot trust the border, if you cannot trust who's on the voter rolls, and if federal agents cannot do their jobs without being physically obstructed, then you do not have ordered self-government. That's the fight. And we'll show you exactly what the Democrats are openly proposing. Congressman Ro Khanna is talking about abolishing ICE, packing the Supreme Court from 9 to 13, and pushing a billionaire tax. Chuck Schumer is raging that the Save America Act could let ICE remove huge numbers from the voter rolls. Nancy Mace exposed Mayor Michelle Wu after Wu claimed ICE makes everyone less safe, then refused to say arresting a child assaulter or MS-13 killer threatens public safety. Their entire framework is unraveling in public. And as we talk about trust, authority, and whether Americans can still separate truth from propaganda, let me show you something that got my attention for a very personal reason. You've probably seen the clip, Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they impact the body at a cellular level. Gibson says it's straight. This stuff works. And that got my attention because in my own life, I watched something very similar unfold. For a long time, my wife was dealing with constant discomfort and anxiety. It was one of those battles that wears you down over time. Then I came across Jonathan Otto and Red Light Therapy at myredlight.com. We decided to look into it seriously. If you want to learn more, just check out the countless interviews I've done with Jonathan right here on this channel, or visit myredlight.com. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Now back to the story where the left keeps trying to blur the line between enforcement, elections, and unrest, because here's the piece they do not want you focusing on. See, this is no longer just a policy argument over deportations. It's becoming a legitimacy fight over whether federal law will be enforced at all. Democrats are not merely criticizing tactics. Many are attacking the very existence of ICE, resisting voter verification, defending sanctuary structures, and then acting shocked when Americans connect the dots. Once voters start seeing these stories as one system instead of random headlines, the politics of the fight change very fast. So let's look at the receipts. Nick Sortor posting, anti-ICE rioters outside Delaney Hall in Newark tried fighting with ICE agents and immediately got blasted with pepper balls. As usual, ICE won very handily, looking like it's going to be another weekend of BS in Newark. Here's some of the video from Nick Sortor. If I was there, I would be just using those pepper ball guns and just unleashing. But Newark showing the pattern, anti-ICE mobs pushing the chaos, then cry foul. Next, Andrew Wilson breaks down how the left is using ICE shootings as cover for riots that they were already primed to unleash.
Is I'm even willing to kind of grant it to the left, just on appearance alone for a second, just for the sake of like logically taking this to its conclusion. Let's say that the cops were totally wrong on this. They messed the whole thing up. They screwed it up. It was a negligent discharge from the officer himself. It killed this guy. It was totally unjustified. Okay, but now what? Right? Is it the case that we're going to stop deporting illegal immigrants? We're going to stop, that ICE is going to stop, Border Patrol's going to stop doing its job, ICE is going to stop doing its job because of a single incident, even if all of the officers involved were incorrect? Of course not. That's ridiculous, right? The thing about this incident is it's being used as a catalyst to now say they're the Gestapo, just like they're trying to do with Renee. They're the Gestapo. They're here to be the jackbooted thugs of the Trump administration. That's being used now as the new rallying cry and catalyst and it's post hoc justification. That's what makes me so angry about it. Is it's like, no, you're out here doing all of this long before anybody was getting shot by ICE. Okay, you're doing this long before there was any supposed abuses by ICE. It seems like what they do is they set up the reactions, right? They set up the conditions, maximize the conditions for horrible actions to happen, and then when they do, they use those as the justification for why they were ever out there in the first place. And it's like, what's going on here? That's what bothers me.
Right. So the street violence isn't random. It's being sold after the fact as some fake moral cause. Now Trump names names pointing straight at George Soros and Reid Hoffman as money behind the agitators.
Paid people. This is organized. They're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil. It's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
When you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it every night, and this has gone on for years. They just burn the place down, and the shop owners, most of them have left, but the few shops that are open, they just use plywood and just like 3/4 inch plywood. They don't put storefronts because they know it's going to be burned down. These are professional agitators. Right. These are bad people, and they pay a lot of money by rich people, some of whom we know. I'm sure I know some. If I knew, I wouldn't associate because I'll be in trouble because people will say, why are you associating with this person? But I will tell you that these are bad people, and they're paying a lot of money, millions of dollars. But take a look at Portland sometime. These are crazy people, and they're trying to burn down buildings, including federal buildings. And on my list of things that I want to do before we finish up with the cities, because I think we're going to whip the cities back into shape, but we have to. We cannot let our cities, and that's a small example, but it's the most violent example. It's every night, and they've done it for years. You think maybe at some point they made their point, and what are they doing? But we're going to get out there, and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that. They're professional agitators and anarchists. They're actually anarchists. Yeah. Go ahead. Why don't you defend? Let's see you defend them, Jeff.
No, I'm not defending anyone. So that we can just explain this in our stories.
You don't explain it right, though, Jeff. Go ahead. Let's go. Maybe let's give you another chance. Go ahead.
Antifa, Soros. What names are we talking about?
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman. Somebody's a pretty rich guy, I guess, and I hear about him. I don't know. Maybe him.
So Trump says the unrest is organized and funded. Meanwhile, Ro Khanna says the quiet part out loud: abolish ICE, pack the Supreme Court.
I'll tell you what my agenda would be, but I think this is going to be the fight for the Democratic leadership of 2028. I don't know whether I'll enter or not, but this is what the agenda should be in 2028. We should be for calling it a Dred Scott court and having Supreme Court term limits and expanding the court from 9 to 13. We should be for abolishing ICE and replacing it with a immigration enforcement office that actually follows human rights and that focuses on sex trafficking, child trafficking, drug offenders, not conducting raids in places like Minneapolis, going after undocumented immigrants or working and paying taxes. We should be for a billionaire's tax, a tax on billionaires.
So his program tells you exactly where Democrats want to go. Now Chuck Schumer adds another piece warning that clean voter rolls could knock huge numbers off the books.
It's about voter registration. It allows ICE to kick tens of millions of people off the rolls, and they don't tell them until election day, and you show up and you say, you're not registered anymore, you're not registered here, you're not on the rolls. And they say, I didn't know that. This is a bill that destroys the country, and it is not about showing ID when you show up to vote. It's about the voter registration rolls, destroying them, purging them, not letting people know, and taking the rights in a algorithm put together by ICE, put together by DOJ and Musk. It's an outrage, and that's why so many people don't want to pass it.
So Schumer practically admits the voter rolls are packed. The Democrats don't want them cleaned up. Next, Nancy Mace puts Boston Mayor Michelle Wu on the spot over her claim that ICE makes people less safe.
Are you willing to go to jail for violating federal law?
The city of Chicago complies with all laws.
Oh, I highly doubt that. Mayor Wu?
We are not violating federal law.
Mayor Wu, I have a last couple questions for you. Do you believe that ICE arresting a child rapist, quote, threatens everyone's safety, end quote? Yes or no?
No.
Does ICE arresting a murderous MS-13 gang member threaten everyone's safety? Yes or no?
No.
I would like to hold up this quote of you where you say ICE's efforts actually threaten the safety of everyone, end quote, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. You're a hypocrite. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Yeah. So what it means is simple. The Trump administration has found the pressure point. Phase 1 was border security. Phase 2, public safety. Now Phase 3 is public order. The question is no longer just whether illegal immigration is bad policy. The question is whether federal officers can execute federal law without mobs, mayors, and media activists trying to nullify it. That's why the SAVE Act matters so much. It bridges immigration and election confidence in one stroke. Citizenship verification, cleaner voter rolls, and restore trust in who gets to shape the country's future. When President Trump says that wealthy left-wing networks may face a RICO investigation if they're funding organized anti-ICE violence, that's not rhetoric for its own sake. That's a president signaling consequences. So don't let the corporate media shrink this down to one shuffle in Newark or one overheated interview clip. The larger story is that President Trump and the America First movement are framing immigration, election integrity, and law enforcement legitimacy as one unified issue. The Democrats keep supplying the evidence with their own words. Abolish ICE, protect sanctuary politicians, attack voter cleanup, smear federal agents, excuse anti-ICE unrest. It's all part of the same worldview, and voters can see it now. That's why the left is panicking, because once Americans understand that border control, honest elections, and public order rise or fall together, the whole Democrat argument collapses. If you believe that federal law should actually be enforced, if you believe only citizens should decide American elections, if you believe that mobs should not intimidate officers doing their job, then this fight matters to you. So share this report, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and answer this yes or no question. Do you believe immigration enforcement and election integrity are now one issue? Let's have a conversation. Let's make sure you stay connected and get the news that you depend on when you text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. We're bypassing the middleman. It's going direct to you, right to your phone, one text message a night, so that you can stay on the inside track of what's happening around the country. And celebrate America 250 with us. Check out the Next News merch shelf below this video, or simply go to shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. All right, that is a wrap. I have to finish packing for my trip to Washington, D.C., which my plane leaves in just a few hours. Looking forward to checking out all the action at the White House. It's interesting because on Saturdays it's a little quieter. As you heard in one of those reports, that a lot of the reporters are packing up and leaving for the weekend. Well, that's the best time to be there, when all the fake news is gone. And then it becomes my playground. So keep your eyes open for the reports that I'll be publishing tomorrow from the White House grounds, giving you the inside scoop on what's happening there in Washington, D.C., right ahead of the big UFC fight on Sunday. So with that, I want you to have a beautiful weekend. We'll see you on Monday. We'll be live again. But make sure you are following Next News on X. You're following Trump Daily Post. You've subscribed to our YouTube channel, where we have over 2 million followers and over 2 billion views since we launched the channel. And make sure you follow us on Rumble and on Kick. All platforms. We'll see you on Monday. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend.
All right, everyone. Sorry about that. I had to grab my food, but I don't think I have anything for more to show you on this podcast. I'm going to join back later and play a little bit more of my subscription for WoW before it ends in like 12 days. So we'll see what we can do with that. And if I decide to play Yu-Gi-Oh, because I was thinking about doing that last night, I'll go ahead and just jump on and do that instead, or after, or whatnot. We'll see. So thank you for joining this. If you like, you can go ahead and help support the channel by subscribing to a tier in Patreon. Forgive me, I don't even have a script for my plugs or anything yet. So just go ahead and look at all the links and figure out where you want to, if you do want to support the channel, that's great. If not, you know, eventually we'll have enough people here to support it just by watching. And thank you for the journey along the way, and sorry for being so cringe and not here for a little bit of it, but we'll go over it again when we get to our podcast segment on Patreon. So my views are a little bit more off air for free people to comment about. You know, just start drama over nothing. But you can kind of understand where I'm leaning already. So if you want to see more uncut, unfiltered thoughts of mine, then go ahead and subscribe to Patreon. See, there you go. There's a better plug for you. And without further ado, thank you. So like, comment, subscribe, and share this so other people like this type of content. And have a great rest of your day.